Here.
Trustee Burson? Here. Trustee McKelvey?
Here.
Trustee Millette? Trustee Muncy?
Here.
Trustee Williams?
Here.
President O'Neill?
Present. Please rise for the pledge. And Tom Williams, will you lead us in the pledge?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to do swearing in this morning for our new councilor. Proud to have Michael Ober here.
If I can just say a couple things about Mike real fast. So he took part in the recent lateral hiring process that was done through the Fire and Police Commission. He finished, he ranked #1 in the process. 20 years of law enforcement experience, including many different roles, detective, sergeant. He's a great addition to the department. I'm confident that his experience will be an asset to us, and I know it'll be great for the community because he's got a good personality. So happy to have him part of the department.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Michael Ober,
I, Michael Ober,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois
and the ordinances of the Village of Campton Hills,
and the ordinances of the Village of Campton Hills,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of your Chief of Police.
Unless he wants it.
The office of the Campton Hills Police according to the best of my ability. And that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of
the
Campton
duties
Hills
of the
Police
office of the Campton Hills Police
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
We'll get to do Okay, next we will have our Campton Hills Village Attorney, Carmen Forte, to say a few words.
Hi, good evening. Next on the agenda is public comment. The chair has just asked me to make a few reminders for our crowd this evening. Public comment is governed by the village code, village code of ordinances with regard to people being able to provide comments this evening. If you have a sign-up sheet, there is a sign-up sheet by the door there. Complete one and provide it to the village clerk before speaking so that we can have your name and address in the minutes. All individuals seeking to speak will have 3 minutes to speak. I think the village clerk has a timer this evening and will let you know when we have about a minute left. We'd ask you to please avoid remarks which are totally repetitious to the remarks of other persons that have already spoken. The chair can take reasonable steps to limit those clearly repetitious remarks. And we please ask you to refrain from addressing the public body in a manner that's threatening to any specific person, whether or not a member of the public body. So in addition to spoken public comments tonight, either the Board of Trustees, staff, or other village officials have received some written comments via email, I believe. They've all been provided to in written format to the board members prior to tonight's meeting, so when they came in on the last hour or so. At the discretion of the chair, she's asking that they're not read into the record tonight, but they will be made part of the minutes for tonight's meeting and will be attached to the minutes. There's been some question regarding the application of the village's zoning ordinance and its proposed format, and as it currently exists to regulations of a homeowners association or a property owners association. Obviously, the village's zoning ordinance is applicable to all properties within the village, but if an HOA or a POA has additional rules that are more strict than the village's zoning ordinance or the village code, those would apply to the particular properties that it controls. So the village's zoning ordinance, let me start that. An HOA's rules can't be less restrictive, but they can certainly be more restrictive with regard to the uses of a property, what can happen on certain properties, setbacks, types of accessory structures, things like that. In addition, there's been a lot of questions regarding open space and its designation on the proposed zoning map. At the last meeting, I believe it was introduced an appendix or proposed appendix of the zoning ordinance of an open space ownership map that will delineate private versus public open space, meaning how it's owned. This would be proposed to be an appendix to the zoning ordinance. I believe it's going to be mentioned in the zoning ordinance that this appendix exists, and that it delineates who owns the property. However, whether or not it's stated in the zoning ordinance as well. The ownership of that particular open space, whether it be a governmental entity or a private entity, they have the right to determine who is allowed to access that open space. So the zoning ordinance, either in its current format or as it's proposed, does not provide any authority for any third party other than the owner to access that open space unless that owner is giving the authority to that third party. We can move on to that.
Thank you, Carmen. We'll move on to public comment. Tracy, our clerk, will proceed.
Ralph Boran.
Yep, working. Good evening, everybody. It's a different venue, but tonight feels a lot like April 25th, 2022, when the zoning commission at the time held a public meeting at the church on 38. There was other people at the church that day, and many people voiced their concerns about losing or limiting their animals, more restrictions, and basically losing the semi-rural part and feel of Canton Hills. Fast forward about 1 year from then, spring 2023, and a new president and 3 new trustees were elected. It is my opinion that the majority of voters opposed the previous administration's zoning views and elected you guys to listen to them and come up with a plan more suitable to Canton Hills. Fast forward another 1.5 years, and it's today we're here with recommendations from a new zoning commission, a group of dedicated and capable people who did exactly what they were asked to do: listen, assess, learn, and make new recommendations to the board. And it seems to me that we're back to April 2022 to debate chicken counts, amounts of horse poop, and who can have goats and sheep and pigs, etc. I know there was the commission before that took several years, worked for several years as well on the zoning ordinance. So it's probably time to move forward. I don't mind being here, but I like to take my family out for dinner rather than Village Hall. You know, I'd rather go to Lupita's or OTP for the night. So my family and I, we have a small homestead here, not in an HOA. We have a small homestead with a few animals, and many of our neighbors, of our direct neighbors, do. We keep things clean, our animals don't smell, and they're not loud because they're happy. We keep them happy. And all of you here have been to our home. You've visited before, and I know you can attest to that. And if animals are truly a nuisance, it's my understanding that we have a strong nuisance code. So we, our family, we don't go crazy with the number of animals. For their sake, of the animals, and for ours too. You know, we don't want to burden ourselves with too many animals. So we also respect our neighbors and use common sense. So trust the commission that was put together, and please trust your people. That's it. Thank you.
Judge Murphy?
How's everybody doing tonight? Well, I don't think we fast forwarded, I think we fast reversed. You know, we spent 9 years trying to come up with new zoning and everything else. Spent hours and hours and hours of the public coming down and stating their opinions. The board that we had, and no one can say that they were bad, they were very good because they listened. No one fast-tracked it. They listened to everybody's concerns about the people that didn't have enough chickens to feed their families, so they increased the numbers. They gave them sheep, goats, which I don't think belong in residential areas, but if that's what the board agreed to, who am I to say they can't do it? But we're talking about not necessarily nuisance, but abusing the ordinances that we have now, which we don't enforce. We haven't enforced anything. We send an officer over to check something out, they're denied access to the property, they leave, and it's a done deal. Now, you put a person on the zoning committee that probably does one of the most violations than anyone in our subdivision. Yes, they do keep it clean. I can't disagree with that. But to sit here and say we don't have very many animals, that's sort of stretching the truth a little bit. These people had pigs on their property, which Mr. Brown told me I can't have no pigs. Said I can't have no cows, but I can have as many horses as I want. I can have as many goats and sheep that I want, and I can have as many chickens and roosters that I want. You know, we're not a farm. We are not a farm. We're residential areas. And the limits, if you have no limits, then you're gonna have people like I'm speaking about right now, just to continue to abuse it. Now, we gave them enough to feed their families. That's not enough now. We want more. They want to run businesses out of their home, and we are a residential area. So let's get some common sense. Let's look at what we worked on so hard for 9 years and countless meetings at the church to talk about this, make concessions, help people out, and now we just want to throw all that out the window, all that work, all that time, all that money. It just makes no sense. Thank you.
Montero?
Hi, good evening. Yeah, we've been around this table many, many times, but I'm here to talk about one specific item, and that is roosters. Okay? There's been a post-2023 push to add roosters. In its current format, it says there is no limit. You can have chickens, you can have roosters. What I've provided to you tonight is a condensation of 9 years worth of work and research. We surveyed all of the counties in metropolitan Chicago. The only one missing here is Cook for obvious reasons. Lake, McHenry, DeKalb, Kane, DuPage, Will, Kendall. DeKalb, you don't get much more rural than DeKalb. Yet in the unincorporated areas, you need 5 acres, with the exception of Lake County at 4.5. You need 5 acres for a rooster. What's before us is there is no limit on roosters. Municipalities below that: Aurora, Batavia, Geneva, St. Charles, Sugar Grove, South Elgin, Elburn, Hampshire, Wayne. Those are, quite a bit of those are rural municipalities. All of them prohibit roosters in residential neighborhoods. The common sense in polling those individuals, the administrators, the mayors, and understand why those limits are in place. Who on this village is going to turn around when your next door neighbor has 4 roosters, who wake you at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the police are called out to address the issue? Now, if there's no limitation, if the quantity of animals are not specified, as was in the 2023, what's the remedy? One neighbor complains on the other. The normal step is to bring that complaint to the village, and it goes through the adjudication process. Consider this. 2 people show up, the complainant and the offender, and they go before the adjudicator. What's the limit on the animals? Well, there are none. Well, then you have no complaint. There will be too many. It'll be an ongoing basis where people are woken 4 o'clock because of roosters. They're farmyard animals. They belong on a farm. I ask you to consider following the wisdom that's gone before you, 5 acres for a rooster. Thank you.
Peggy Sue Seahaver.
Good evening. I'm Peggy Sue Seahafer, been a resident since 1985, and the year after, we built a barn and brought our horses here. Following the zoning of St. Kane County, we have lived here happily. When there was much discussion about the zoning revisions, I was able to contact people from the board and had my input, and I believe it was heard, understood, and respected. After 9 years of great discussions on the 2023 changes, it was voted upon. With that, I decided to help our community by volunteering. My concerns about the 2024 are based on animal safety. In 2000, I co-founded Fox Valley Wildlife Center and became a state licensed rehab. The welfare of all animals is a priority of mine, and I believe some of the new zoning ordinances are a problem. There are reasons only 3 dogs are allowed in a residency. No numerical limits to the number of chickens, horses, or barnyard animals, in my opinion, is wrong. And having it up to neighbors to complain in order to resolve abuse is pitting neighbor to neighbor, and that is extremely detrimental to our village. I've provided you with examples of some horrific, this year, abuse of animals on properties in this area. I also provided you with my equine veterinarian letter that I'd like you to peruse, because he also agrees. Believing we are responsible animal caretakers is an error when you look at a few of the examples of the horrific conditions I've given you. My example of one most recently is someone that I'm aware of with 30 mini horses The stallion was left for 3 days with a broken leg, no food and water, and all the animals were confiscated. The owner also let some of her dogs loose to fend for themselves. They have also been replaced or got new caregivers. I implore you that the 2023 in regard to animal numbers and care is taken into account. Thank you.
Eric Wiseman.
Hi, my name is Erica Wiseman. My husband Mike and I live in Campton Hills with our 6 children. When we moved here, we had 3 sweet daughters, and while living here, we were blessed with 3 energetic sons, who were all born right here in Campton Hills. 1 month before we moved to Portland, or 1 month before we moved to, so we moved here from Portland. 1 month before we moved to Portland, while I was pregnant with our 2nd child, I became hearing impaired in a matter of a few minutes, and my life was suddenly very different. We found that having a dog gave me peace of mind that enabled me to be able to hear a knock or doorbell by the way of a dog barking, as well as a sense of protection that comes with having a dog. When we moved to Portland, it was a new subdivision and no HOA was established yet. Once the HOA was established, we were denied the request to install a fence on our stamp-sized lot in order to contain our dog. That was especially upsetting because our dog did not pay any attention to the electric fence. So I then had to either anchor the dog outside or chase him. Neither were practical for me or the dog, certainly not with 3 young children in tow. After living in Portland for a bit, we realized it was not the place for us. Too many restrictions, not enough freedom. We sold our home in the stifling HOA subdivision and moved into a rental in Campton Hills. While in the rental house, we spent many months looking for a home and felt very strongly that we wanted our home to be in Campton Hills. Our goals were, number 1, not to have an HOA. 2, to have more room for the kids to play and roam, to grow our own food, raise chickens and bees, and to have more of a community atmosphere with like-minded people. Campton Hills checked all those boxes and more. Please do not change that. Most of our family is here tonight with many other residents to ask you consider what the residents moved to a non-HOA subdivision for. More freedoms, not less. If more restrictive rules are enacted, we will be dividing the people rather than encouraging the close sense of community. Thank you.
Sue Whitman.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. One of my concerns, and checking with other people, is that when you decide, when you make your final renovations or of your zoning, how are you going to disseminate that information to the public? I know there's 1,000 ways to do it, and everybody, half the people don't get newspapers anymore, and everybody's on devices and things, of course, but still, there seems to be, this is not an issue that I think trustees, granted, this many trustees even, should be the ultimate decision makers of. Since we're having an election, a referendum in March or April for the new trustees, it wouldn't cost any more money, would it? A few extra lines on a ballot to let the entire village vote. I think you would get more of a response from people because they're going to be very interested in who's going to be trustees, and hopefully that would. I know it won't get 100%. Nothing gets 100%. But I think it would be a way to check the pulse of the population and see how they feel about new zoning. I don't think it's something that you can disseminate enough information in various ways, and of course some of the responsibility for that is the public's. It's our duty to keep abreast of things, but we're not just a small little community that we used to be. So I hope you take once you get there, that you hope you take a different way to disseminate the information and get more of a true feel for what the general population feels about what you're doing. Thank you.
Darlene Bach?
This isn't the first subject I came to talk about. I have two things, but I agree. I do not want a rooster in my next door neighbor's house. That's all I have to say on that. The other one is, at the last board meeting, Trustee Burson brought up massage therapy businesses in residential dwellings. The issue of permitting or not permitting massage establishments with Campton Hills was well researched and considered over the 9 years leading to the 2023 zoning code. Packets I want to give out in a minute. During that time, while preparing for the zoning code, by unanimous vote, massage establishments were not included. Campton Hills chose not to deal with the unsavory problems that plague communities such as Elburn and St. Charles. In your packets are examples of these. Overwhelmingly, the consensus was that it was not appropriate or wanted in our community. This time around, I'm not even sure if allowed would monitor such establishments, as it was mentioned on page 13 of the November 4 zoning summary package under, and I quote, maximum for categories of animals. The statement for the 2024 draft changes, quote, staff has a reluctance to enforce the maximum. And that was the counting of animals would be difficult. In many instances, permission to access the property would be required. If accessing the property to count animals on the exterior is difficult, I ask what difficulties would law enforcement have to access interior of a private resident to investigate a questionable massage practice. Since 2017, Trustee Burson Trustee Burson has operated a massage establishment in her residence, which as well houses an art gallery. Both are in violation of the Campton Hills zoning code. Provided are documents supporting these statements. Those are the ones I'm passing around. I'd also like to bring to your attention, besides massage, she offers services that also violate the zoning restrictions which fall under the definition of medical dental office, page 74 of the code. It says healing arts and holistic therapies, etc. are not allowed. By the way, these services are widely available through Delnor Sherman if needed in the village. In conclusion, I have a couple questions. Who here is going to pursue these zoning violations, and is serving in a public trust position grant an individual special privilege not afforded to the general public? This is blatantly unethical, and I ask that Ms. Burson recuse herself from voting on these matters, and that board members aren't elected to enrich themselves. Thank you.
Neil Anderson?
I'm Neil Anderson. I live on Brown Road, lifelong resident of Campton. Our family's been here since the late 1800s. In regarding to our zoning ordinance, after lots of discussion at the board level and lots of input from residents, the board decided to establish a task force to remedy the situation. The task force spent hours upon hours working on a solution that would work for all interested parties. The volunteers helped the village with this task at no compensation. All these hours were volunteer, and because they care. I think it would be foolish not to listen to their recommendations.
back doing the same thing again. All right. This weekend, Trustee Millette asked me to attempt to make some basic logical chicken number calculations using a handful of 1 to 1.5 acre lots. I spent over 3 hours creating different scenarios and concluded that there is no way to do this without being arbitrary. I'll explain. If you gave me a real plat with dimensions, what structures exist, drainage and utility easement data, setback requirements, floodplain and stormwater data for the property, specifics about the septic field size and location and well locations, then it would be easy. It wouldn't take anyone long at all. Every lot is unique, every resident's needs and desires are unique, and we can't give a one-size-fits-all number for some cases without being haphazard or random in other cases. Lot shapes play a huge part in all of this. We have wide rectangles, long rectangles, front pies, back pies. Some lots even have 5 sides. It only seems fair and consistent that if we're back to counting 6-pound chickens or 8-pound rabbits again, will we be counting 1,000-pound horses, 50-pound goats, or 12-pound ducks too? But one of my bigger concerns is something that hasn't even been discussed at the board level yet. Inconsistencies in the setbacks. Let me give a simple example scenario. I have a lot of tools and tractors, so I build a barn. The barn is allowed to be 10 feet from the property line. I use my barn and live there for a few years. I sell my house. The new owners, they don't need to store the tools or tractors and want to use their barn for some chickens. Whoops, they can't. The barn would now need to be 15 feet from the property line, not 10. Sorry, give me 15 seconds added here. Do they have to apply for a variance because they might store something other than tools in their already existing structure? Okay, so maybe the village gives them the variance. They sell their house a few years later. The new owner doesn't really want chickens, but they want a goose and a goat. Well, sorry again, they can't put them in the barn because now the barn would need to be 25 feet from the lot line, not 10. Here we go with another variance. In my opinion, all structures should just be created equal. The same inconsistency also applies to the fencing setbacks. I can put my fence on the property line to yard my dogs, but if I put a goat in that same yard, does the fence now have to be moved in 5 feet? Will I need to get a variance for this too? How will I mow this 5-foot no man's land if my property is landlocked? How many fences already exist in the village that would now be considered non-conforming? To end simply, do we really want to create future non-conformings based on what multiple owners in the future may decide to store in their structures or use their yards for? Thank you. Kristen Scherenhausen.
I've lived in Hampton Hills for 33 years. Before that, we were on a farm in DuPage County. Come from a farm family. We've raised everything from cattle, pigs, horses, sheep, rabbits, and chickens. Those are all considered farm animals, not pets. In our neighborhood, we do not have an HOA, and the people that live there, I can say in county today, 25% do not comply with any of the current restrictions. We've had too many chickens, we've had roosters, we had previously owned a second property in Maple Park. The people we bought it from kept roosters. The main purpose people would have more than one rooster is cockfights. And that's what they were running every weekend, with drawing a large crowd for that. So I would not allow any roosters. If these are farm animals, not pets. And one thing that these animals all have in common is they eat off the ground. I don't care how you contain the food, and their containers, whatever, rodent proof. Once the animals are fed, the feed's on the ground, and that draws rodents, not just your cute little mice. They do draw rats. Once you have rats, you don't get rid of rats. So is this something, maybe keep the farm animals on farms and let families live in the residential areas?
Sarah Elliott.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Sarah Elliott. I am here with my 3 daughters in the back. I was born and raised in Campton Hills. My parents moved in 1976 and still live on Briarwood Drive. I, as an adult, moved back to the area and decided this is the environment that I wanted to raise my family in. I grew up gardening. I grew up knowing where food came from, and I think that's an incredibly important aspect of life that our children in schools today do not get taught where food comes from. It's really important for me. My kids know where it comes from, and yours also. We started keeping chickens in 2015, and happened to get a rooster or 2 in the flock, not through choice. But the day I saw my rooster take on a red-tailed hawk that was trying to take one of my hens out of my backyard, I decided that rooster could stay. We have kept a rooster to protect our flock, and we also keep our food in barrels and locked up tight. And yes, we have cute little mice. No, we don't have rats. I respect all the work that has gone into the zoning. I think it's really important. I super appreciate the civic engagement that's happened around this in our community. I respect especially the current proposed zoning. We all attended, many of us attended recently, provided comments and feedback, and that was given to you trustees. That was a huge body of work as well, and it was, it should not be taken lightly, all the comments that have gone into this to build this already. The people really care about their community, and to disregard the volume of comments that have already been made is disrespectful. So please, keep our village as it's been, not, we're keeping up with the times, but at the same time, we have to know where we come from and maintain our rural environment. Thank you.
Christine Brower.
Hi there. My name is Christine Brower, and I have the big white barn that's just west of Wasco. My family came here in 1842. I grew up on a farm with cows and pigs and everything you can imagine. My father was a really good farmer, as my grandfather, and he would go around and buy cattle, and he knew a man that wasn't far from here that named every single one of his cows. He loved them to pieces, but the man never let them out of the stanchion. The man did not feed them enough. So my father tried to explain to him, there are other ways. You need to let the cows out, you need to feed them corn, whatever. And I appreciate everybody around here who's wanting to have mini farms. But I am very concerned with your zoning, that you apply enough rules and regulations that I don't know if people know if they have chickens and they have to be kept in 120 square foot area, that you can't just let them eat and poop and eat and poop and eat and poop. You have to clean it really well or the animals are gonna get sick. And so for the welfare of animals, I really think there has to be a way to control and check people to see what they're doing. I also just grew up with some roosters around, and they can be very noisy and very loud, and I think it's wonderful to have chickens. I'm glad you can have all the chickens you want, but I do think roosters might be a consideration if it's in a residential area. I was on the zoning board and plan commission for 10 years, so I worked hard to get some of the rules and regulations. We worked on dark sky, we've done a lot of positive things. So I ask you to use common sense with this and respect the people that want to have animals, but also have a way that you can guide them so that there isn't abuse and those kinds of things. Thank you for your time.
a chicken and goat owner, and I'm not so sure why there's such a concern with the animals keeping on the properties. I'm not trying to run a business. I'm not trying to have excessive numbers of animals. My chickens and my goats are our pets. My daughter takes my goats on walks. She puts a little halter on the goat and walks the goat after dinner. We've taken family walks with our goats. It's lovely. Our chickens have names. These are our pets. Yes, they're farm animals or barnyard animals, but they're our pets. We chose to move out of a neighborhood that had an HOA so that we could have this type of environment for our family. From my understanding, the HOA rules and regulations will limit that. So for the folks that don't want to have that lifestyle, there is that opportunity. You live in a neighborhood with an HOA that controls what people can and can't have. For the folks like myself who wants to take a nightly goat walk with my family, I can live in an area without an HOA. So I'm not really sure, it's like a fear of these animals, and it's almost like people that don't know what the reality is, and I'm not sure why that's such a concern. I think that the newer regulations or suggestions that they've come up with accommodate a lot of people's wants that want to live in that kind of life. That's all.
Nora Hensel?
Hello. Nora Enzel, like you said. I've been the owner of a small horse property in Campton Hills since 2018. I'm also part owner of a large horse farm in Ocala, Florida. Lifelong competitive equestrian. I've got an associate's degree in equine management, bachelor's in equine training instruction. I've also been an Illinois licensed attorney since 2013. I have attended meetings on the proposed zoning code since 2019 approximately. I know many of you guys have been working on it long before then, and I really respect the efforts. The 2023 zoning code was a disappointment to many of us in the animal community, which is why we organized and voted out the president and village board members that we could when they were up for re-election. This new administration created a committee to rewrite that code. That committee held meetings, accepted public comment, and ultimately recommended a code to this board that is in large part really excellent, in my opinion. I thank the members of that committee for their work. I think this is the code a lot of us wanted back in 2023. Now though, when that code was sent to this board for approval, it appears to be going backwards. What's the point of appointing a committee to hear resident feedback and draft a code if it's just going to be torn apart at the board level by members pushing their own personal opinions and agendas? The village board is elected to represent the residents. The residents have been clear. At every meeting where animals are on the agenda, residents show up in droves, this one included. Nearly all want freedom, minimal restrictions, and the ability to do what they want with their property. They love our semi-rural community and want to preserve its uniqueness. It's irrelevant to me what any other community or county does as far as their animal zoning. I trust our residents to responsibly own whatever animals they want. What must be considered is that this zoning code is not the only way to regulate animal welfare or to protect neighbors and the community. We already have environmental regulations regarding groundwater pollution and runoff, nuisance laws regarding animal noise and waste and unsightly conditions, animal welfare laws regarding humane treatment and housing of animals, permit requirements and regulations for fences and buildings. These things all already exist and are working. We do not have an issue with animal overpopulation in Campton Hills, to my knowledge. We don't have complaints of properties being overrun with any animals, and I believe there's never been a complaint about someone having too many animals here, to my knowledge. There's no need to impose blanket restrictions on over 10,000 residents because of a personal fear that at some point in the future, someone may have too many animals on a Campton Hills property. Additionally, and briefly, a prohibition on electric fences would be inappropriate for horse owners. Electric fencing, very commonly used in horse management, is an affordable way to protect wood and vinyl fence, as well as highly flexible way to construct divider fences on horse properties to allow for rotational grazing and responsible pasture management. Electric fences use low amps and a pulsating current. They're not a danger to animals or people. Please don't make the same mistakes as the previous administration. Please adopt the least restrictive animal regulations that you can based on the draft provided to the committee. Thank you.
Chanel Jackson?
Thank you for allowing
actually represent the Westwood St. Charles Community Association. I'm here to express my strong opposition to the Village of Campton Hills proposed 2024 zoning, or this particularly Article 9, the keeping of animals. The issue I have is the changes outlined in the ordinance, with especially the removal of numerical limits. Now, listen, I don't have a problem with animals, with farms. I love farms and animals and all of that. I don't have an issue with any of that. What I have an issue with, and what our residents have an issue with, is the removal of numerical limits. Now, I live in front of a property that is a non-residential area, residential area. It's chickens, roosters, whatever. And they run all over the yard, they run into my yard. We now have an enormous rodent population, pest infestation, because some owners take care of their property, while others don't. And we know that's a reality. There are many responsible people, and I respect them. But when you're talking about residential areas, residents are not farms. So these are the things I'm concerned about. I'm just going to get right to it. The health and safety concerns. The proposed ordinance raises several critical public health and safety concerns and could have long-term implications for our residents. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, backyard poultry livestock are known carriers of disease. Okay? Influenza, avian flu, I can go on. These illnesses can spread humans through direct contact with animals, contaminated surfaces, even airborne pathogens, from manure and other leading causes worldwide pandemics. This is when people are not responsible. And when you remove the numerical limits, what you're doing is you're asking for these sort of things to occur. Groundwater contamination. Not everybody places their chicken coops where they should be, right? I know some that even put their chicken coop on top of the Magellan pipeline, right? All right, children in vulnerable populations. Pest chemicals, swarm management, and predator attraction. We have predators running through my yard, everybody else's yard, to grab a chicken or a rooster and run down the street with them. Now we have a population of predators that run up underneath our deck, around other areas in our neighborhood, right? So these are HOAs surrounded by non-HOA properties who are being affected by this. So we're talking about improperly managed animal feed and waste. Residents' lack of bee colony swarm management. We actually have colonies of bees on this property. There's no swarm management. What if a kid goes over there and accidentally gets up against the colony, and is what? Goes to the hospital and almost dies? Additionally, the presence of poultry and livestock attracts predators. I've said that. Odor and air quality issues. Noise pollution. Community and environmental pattern.
Chanel, your 3 minutes are up, so just finish.
Okay, so I'm really just saying the solution to this is really limiting equality, limiting the numerical, actually imposing the numerical limits, which can help us all. And one issue is also, again, roosters. Okay? Thank you.
Amanda Bogey?
Good evening. Amanda Bogey, residing at 4 North 394 Foxville Drive, Campton Hills. I've been here numerous times and had some public speaking over the last several months. I've been coming to these meetings for a number of years. There's multiple people in this room this evening. I contemplated speaking this evening because, especially after our village attorney explained not to repeat what others have already touched upon, but I feel that I need to speak upon some of the things that I feel very strongly about with living here. Again, we're backpedaling. Very disappointing last week when I saw all the different things that the 2024 proposal for zoning was starting to be taken out of. I don't have a mini farm, but as this lady spoke, I have a horse, I have a goat, I have chickens, I have a koi pond, I have bees. I live on 2.5 acres. I like to know where my food comes from. I like to take a stroll on my horse in the property. Guess what? My goat has to come along because she's addicted to my horse. My whole neighborhood loves my animals. They come over to see my animals. I live on a pie shape. You're gonna tell me I can't have a loafing shed on the side of my pie-shaped property? Okay, my OGs, my girls that are old, my chickens that don't produce eggs anymore, I don't kill them, I keep them. They have names, I love them. The chickens that I get every year, because I have roosters, because I have a flock, and the reason why I have roosters, let me just share with you real quick. In my role, the rooster is a protector. A rooster does not just scout for food, but he keeps an eye out for my girls. He keeps an eye out for predators, alerting my flock to danger, pushing my hens to safety, and aggressively defending them against other attackers from the air and the ground. And I've seen this firsthand, as other people have seen in this room. Taking this responsibility very seriously, a rooster may give its life in defense of the flock. It's a natural way to safeguard your flock, and then you have your flock that's protected. It's less sound than a dog coming out of a house barking at someone walking on the street. Growing up, we kept roosters on our homestead at all times. We learned that this was a very important tip from other chicken keepers. The importance of keeping 2 roosters at one time. So if one rooster somehow loses his battle while protecting my girls and his flock, he simply dies from old age, I have that younger rooster that's learned from him, and he can take over his flock. It would take a very long time to reintroduce a random rooster to my flock and to get him established in the pecking order. My hens become roosters and will kick his butt out of the way. So anyway, self-sustainable fertilized eggs. Again, I don't plan the fertilized eggs that I get. Some are men or males, roosters, some are females. I don't keep my 10 roosters to cockfight. I keep them so I can feed my family. In 5 to 6 months, when they are meat eating, my husband and I butcher them, and then we keep them in our freezer for the winter.
Amanda, your time is up, so just finish it, please.
So as far as how many roosters you can have, I get it for the noise complaint, but just to let you know, every single one of my neighbors around me, when we butcher our roosters, are like, what happened to your roosters? Why aren't they crowing anymore? I have one gentleman that I thought it was actually his 3-year-old grandson that was crowing at my roosters. No, it was a 55-year-old man because he enjoys my roosters. There's multiple things I can talk about, setbacks and everything. I've hit my time, but please just listen to the committee who has already provided you the information that they took the time to gather from everybody sitting in this room and not here represented tonight.
That's the end of our public comment session. So thank you all for speaking, and all the comments were very good comments. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. Anything to remove from our consent agenda? Okay. Hearing none. Motion to that consent?
Move to approve.
Oh, Mike, okay. Second, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from trustee Muncy. All in favor, say aye, or roll call, excuse me, roll call.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Boger?
Aye.
Trustee Burton?
Aye.
Trustee McDelby?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to staff reports, we have Public Works Committee update. Scott Markler.
Good evening. I'll make this report fairly brief. One thing I do want to mention is, you may notice this is the first time this is being included in staff reports. There were discussion at recent Public Works Committee meetings about how to better try to get the work that they do forwarded onto the board. So the discussion was to put on village board agenda with quick updates on it. You've got the information in front of you. I'm not going to read through it. I just want to touch on a couple of specific items of importance and answer any questions if there are. Item C, the 2025 roadway project, as you know, that is all progressing forward for rebuilding 4 major collector roadways, utilizing well over $2 million worth of grant funding from King County. That is on schedule for a probably midsummer construction start here in the village. Next page, Route 47 McDonald Road, there's been significant discussion about that in recent meetings. Highway District did recently put in the rumble strips on McDonald Road, and we are also working to get meetings set up with IDOT to discuss potential changes that would be involved regarding potential closure of the west side. We do not have a date set for that yet. That's in progress. Item G, 5-year capital improvement plan. Draft 5-year plan was presented at the Public Works Committee meeting and discussed. The information is all in the Public Works Committee packet for anyone's viewing. I just want to note that it's aggressive, as you know, as it was with the first 5-year plan. There is, as you've heard before, a significant funding shortfall to be able to complete all these projects, even taking into account in that plan, approximately $3 million worth of grant funding coming in. There's still a significant funding shortfall the board has to look at how to address and how to continue maintaining your roadways. Private roadway conversion, that is actually later on the village board agenda, so I won't touch on that. And stormwater reimbursement fund policy. First application that came in this past year was discussed briefly at the committee. Was tabled until they could evaluate the application further, and they're looking to look into that and provide direction at their January Public Works Committee meeting. So with that, just a brief summary of what went on, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to present this.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions or comments about Scott's presentation? Hearing none, thank you. Okay, next we have IT server update. It's Kim Muir, who's the committee chair.
Evening all. I'll be brief. So one of the main mandates of our ad hoc committee was to actually decide whether or not we needed to replace the server or not. Coming down, the direction where the committee wants to go, but we're just not ready to go there yet, is to do it some other ways, but taking a look at the immediate need that we want to go with the server. That server OS will be viable until 2031, which is more than, it's the life of the hardware that we're going to get. Basically looking at about 11,400, it's like 312 or something, and that doesn't include a UPS, which is needed because those batteries are really old down there. So we want to make sure we protect that hardware. Other than that, I mean, some of the direction is we do want to do some synchronization to get us into a hybrid environment. There's some other things, but the main thing was the server. I mean, I don't know if you want me to touch on any of the other ones. I just rather, yeah, okay. Some of the other things were, we also have a recommendation that we consider a high availability firewall with secondary internet pipe in case the primary goes down. And if for some reason that goes down, with that redundant HA firewall, that services for the police department continue on, which is the main safety thing, okay? We definitely want to make sure that we are servicing the police department appropriately here. And that cost was similar to the replacement and update that we did, okay? It does require another switch, but it's negligible. It's still like around $1,000 or so, just a little over $1,000. We want a little higher pipe than our technology provider quoted us originally. But again, that secondary connection to the internet would be LTE, so it'd be over the air. We wouldn't be worried about cut lines and things. There's still a power issue. If we actually had a tornado come through and wipe a bunch of stuff out, we're still dealing with other issues at that point. So, I think the only other thing was that we have one of our members, Member Petsky, actually has a cabinet, a full cabinet that's lockable that he wants to donate. So as long as you guys approve, the president approves it, and is okay with that, he's more than willing to donate that, and we want to secure that equipment. Any questions?
Any questions for Ken? Comments? Okay, thank you, Ken. Moving along, we have the police department. We have Chief James Levan.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of comments, so I'll make this one short for you guys. I know you're still waiting for your packets. Hopefully next day or two that'll be finalized, because there was a switchover going to the new LMS system with Kane County. So we're still trying to figure out all the graphs and everything, but it's almost there, so I'll have that to you shortly. But the call for service for October, 285 calls for service, 15 accidents, 137 citations, and 2 arrests. Just a reminder, the Holidays in the Hills event will be Saturday, December 7th from 3 to 6 p.m. It's here at the Village Hall / Police Department. Refreshments, activities for the kids, hayride, choir, Santa Claus and his elves, CODA, and then of course the tree lighting ceremony. Big thank you to the Community Relations Committee because they work on this all year long, so they do a lot of the work behind the scenes. Sunday, December 15th, beginning at 1 p.m., the police department will do our yearly Christmas parade that we always do. So it's just a reminder, gets bigger each year, local agencies, first responders, of course Santa Claus, the entire crew from the North Pole, they take part. We hand out candy and toys through the event, so I want to I don't have great artistic ability, so I did a map for our route for the parade, and someone, Scott Marquette back there, must have saw my map online and didn't like the quality of it. So he actually made a new map for me, so we've updated that. I didn't ask him to do it, he did it, kindness of Scott, so I appreciate it. His map is much better than the one that I made, so thank you, Scott, for doing that. Sort of good news, I spoke to Mike from KDOT this afternoon. So they're finalizing the paperwork, the generator that we've all been discussing for a very long time right now. The one that was brand new, that was gonna be used for the Long Meadow Corridor Parkway, King County and KDOT have decided, they're finalizing the paperwork, that they would sell that generator to the Village of Campton Hills for approximately $15,000. That is almost a $70,000 generator that is brand new. It's been sitting underground, it hasn't been used, but for the most part, it's brand new. So I stress to the board, when this comes through in the next day or two, to jump on this as fast as you can. And I want to thank, obviously, Kane County, Mike, and Tom Ricker from KDOT, because they all played a big role in this. But it's a huge cost savings. This generator will be able to power the entire building. And we know we have some issues with power going out. So at least that was some good news today. But that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Any questions for our chief? Tom?
And just, if we could, we'll be proposing the full power for the building with this answer, because that's what we're waiting on, whether we do a small one on the roof to just do the police communications. I think I have consensus to go with the full, and we will spend the rest of the American Rescue dollars on this project. And I'll work with a couple of the trustees that have volunteered to get a document for you at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I'd like to publicly thank Tom Ricker. He was just always available and in contact with me regarding the generator. So thank you to Tom. But speaking of Tom, okay.
When you say there's something we need to do, I mean, can we do it right, Tom? I just like to get that generator.
I think if there's a consensus, I will make good on the purchase and ask you to ratify that decision. next meeting on December 3rd on the purchase price of approximately $50,000. I trust that if I take that action, you won't fire me at the next meeting for taking that action, so you'll ratify it.
Okay, anybody else, any comments, any questions? Okay, finally, finance report, Timothy McPhillips, our treasurer.
Good evening. I can confirm the chief is not a good man maker. Many of you on the board should have received these 6 months financial statements thus far, so we're halfway through the fiscal year. I'll just give some top level points on it for the general public. With half of the year in, the general fund revenues are coming in at 58.1% of the budgeted revenue, so that's a favorable variance. And the total general fund expenditures are 49%, which is also a favorable variance. The two main departments in the general fund are general administrative and police department. The general fund is coming in favorably at 42.3% compared to 50%. The police department is coming in slightly over budget at 58%, which is attributable to personnel utilization and the complete recognition of dispatch services for the entire year. The remaining 3 funds, the motor fuel tax fund, the road and bridge fund, and the capital fund are all coming in as expected. Any variances are reasonably explainable. The cash balance at this point is $5.3 million. The audit field work is racking up. There's one call I still need to make to the auditors, but otherwise, we anticipate presenting to the Finance Committee in December and then presenting to the entire board in January. After that, the start of the fiscal year 26 budget process will commence. Any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead.
On the MFT fund revenues and the road and bridge fund revenues, it seems like one interpretation of those is that MFT is running slightly under budget. Do we expect to make up that even admittedly small amount of lost ground in the second half?
Yeah, yes, the motor fuel tax funds can be somewhat lumpy.
Right.
I can give you an extrapolation of what we expect the remainder of the year to look like. The Illinois Municipal League gives a nice projection, usually mid-year. I haven't created that projection out for the remainder of the year, but I can make sure that's included in the next report.
Great, thanks. And with road and bridge fund revenue, being favorable to budget at 85.6% is great, except if we're expecting no more revenue for the rest of the year in road and bridge fund, does that also imply that we're 14% and change down on road and bridge fund overall for the year?
No, we do have 2 more months of road and bridge funds we would expect. I can create a schedule for that.
I thought maybe we were saying that we kind of gotten what we were going to get.
No, we get 8 payments for the year. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more question here, Jim.
Yeah, not a question, more of a statement. I don't want to become the voice crying in the wilderness, but when you look at legal services under village board and legislative, halfway mark, we're 96% spent of budget. I have brought this up many times before, and I guess I would challenge us to know it's not anything against our current legal firm. It's not my issue. My issue is certainly any trustee on this board making any phone calls to this to our law partner here, or even coming in when he's here doing something else and taking his time where that meter is running. We just cannot do it. This is crazy. And all my time looking at these budgets, to say that we're 96 spent of our entire year's budget at the halfway mark, we've got to do something. Now, last year, there were some understandable things that took place, which I understand, okay? But I don't understand this. And this, I think, is we have to be very, very careful. And I know when we budgeted it, we thought we did more than enough. But I can tell you, as I've been saying, each time I see those warrants at 17,000, 15,000, whatever the case may be, it's just too high. And we owe the citizens of our village
be good with their, you know, with our funds and to be fiscally sound. And I think being this far along is not a good thing. My only comment.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments, questions? Okay, go ahead.
Just a question, I guess, thank you. I'd like to see a plan, a projection for how we maintain a balanced budget with, you know, the possibility of us spending twice as much on legal if this continues in a year. Where do we find that? Where we project that we can absorb that? So if that can be presented in the next meeting or two, how we handle this situation, I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Timothy.
Thank you, and good evening.
Have a safe drive home. Okay, moving along, we're on 6 action items. Motion to remove from the table and approve the minutes of October 15, 2024 Village Board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Burson, second by trustee Williams. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson? Aye. Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Bogern?
Aye.
Trustee McDuffie?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Munson?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. On to discussion items. Number 7A, private roadway to public roadway conversion request discussion and direction. And,
I can just give an overview. Yeah, basically, there's been a area of the village that's unincorporated that wishes to have their roads, they're in the Campton Township, they're covered by Campton Township Highway Department, but they want to take the road and put it into Scott. Basically, we're recommending negative on this request, right, Scott?
That's correct. I do want to make one little correction, it's a little bit of a misunderstanding. The neighborhood is incorporated in the village.
yes.
Okay, but the roads themselves, when the neighborhood was set up, were set up as private roadways. They're not plowed by the highway district, they're not maintained by the village. A request was received to, to see if the village would consider taking them over maintenance jurisdiction and such. This was discussed at the Public Works Committee, and I apologize, I forgot to recognize a couple of Public Works Committee members that are here this evening, Kim Muir, Andrew Larario, and John Boveri. And Ray Weber from the Highway District is here as well. They first contacted Ray, who had some discussion forwarded with me. It's been discussed back and forth at Public Works, and their consensus, in fact unanimous, there's also a letter in your packet, is it's not something that the village should consider. Recognizing that the Public Works Committee is an advisory committee and doesn't actually establish policy for the village, had a discussion that made sense to bring it forward to this board.
And we have no idea if those private roads were built to any kind of engineering standard for us to take them. It would be a cost burden to the village writ large, and we already have a problem with financing and paying for the roads that we've already had in our incorporated list. So we're strongly recommending against this action.
Trustee Burson.
My understanding from the information provided is that the residents in this area are paying an additional fee, apparently to the HOA, is that correct?
Yes.
That was perhaps intended to cover this maintenance?
Very possible, it does show up on their documents that they do pay it. The people in that subdivision on private roads pay a higher fee to the HOA than residents that are not on the private road frontage.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? All right, thank you, Scott. And, yeah, there is a letter from John, Chairman Boveri in our packets, if you want to read or look at the letter.
President Lincoln, I guess I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know we can't give legal advice to this early, but is there any discussion or anything about, I understand they have an issue, and they have a funding problem, we have a funding problem, but we know what our options are. They know what their options are concerning whether it's an SSA or something else that they can do. I don't know if we can provide information, but we'd like to help residents somehow, but we can't take over for us.
I think that gets into how much does the village want to invest in, looking through their documents, seeing what procedures are, providing guidance to them. I mean, it has functioned the way it is currently ever since inception. There was one resident who was a director of the board who would contact me. Not had contact from any other residents in the neighborhood.
Okay, well, thank you, Scott. All right, moving on to 7B, Resolution 24-05, to enter into a boundary agreement with the Village of Burlington, and we'll have our attorney Carmen speak on this.
I've recently been working, or for some time been working with village attorney for the Village of Burlington on the proposed boundary agreement. The prior village attorney, before he retired, did prepare a draft form of the agreement, which I reviewed with their new attorney now, and we're pretty close on proposed language. We're now looking at the issue of land resource management plan, which is essentially a guide for both municipalities to determine how they want to address future uses of the land between the two municipalities. So either north or south, or east or west of the boundary line is set equidistant between the two municipalities. So we have a few options of how we could address that. We could have a separate plan, or we could include language inside of the boundary agreement that gives a general overview of what both municipalities are looking for, which generally is to maintain the current status of the properties that are there now. It's mostly rural properties, non-residential or light residential areas. So hopefully should have an update and be able to approve this by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you, Carmen. Anybody have questions for Carmen regarding the boundary agreement? Okay, we'll move on to the moment everybody's been waiting for, the discussion item C, review draft zoning ordinance. And I'll hand it over to James Brown.
Yeah, James is going to give us an overview from last Thursday's meeting to what we had consensus on. He has drafted language. He will do a check of the room to see if we have, as staff, encapsulated the things you did come to consensus on in the document. And then we're going to try to go down the list of items that are still open. And we'll kind of have a threshold question of, are there 4 votes of the body to even make a modification to what the zoning commission has proposed? And if the chair doesn't see 4, we're asking for the cooperation of the board to move to the next issue and not rehash and discuss the item infinitum. But that is my recommendation. You can follow it or not. And with that, James Brown, please.
Sure. So I did, I sent out a staff memo, I had several attachments, and I did 2 things. I went and changed the draft ordinance once again. So what's up online should incorporate the language that, as I understood it, we wanted to change. And then I extracted those changes, sections or paragraphs, and put it in the staff report. So I'm going to walk you now and ensure that I've got it correctly. There's something else that comes up regarding this. This, I hope, is the low hanging fruit we'll get through pretty quick. The first, there was a question on the open space map. We said there would be an appendix, and I suggested at the time in the part where it gives the purposes of the district that we add language. So we come down here to subparagraph 4, put private and public in there. You see the changes in red, and underline is what's been added. I'll increase the size of this maybe. And then we put, I put a sentence at the end, or a couple sentences, talking about that being designated as part of the open space preservation district does not indicate public or private ownership and does not confer public access. I'm not going to read the whole statement. So I think I captured that, and it makes a reference to Appendix 1. Appendix 1, I think that version went up today. That should be the very last page of the ordinance. I got a digital copy today. There was was a correction I wanted, HR Green to make, and they did that. And, there's no discussion here with either one. Right, so that's it. Second item, was discussion on utilities. There seemed to be maybe some discrepancy or confusion, so I modified the language. I had mentioned at the previous meeting of stuff underground. Not exactly true, but just equipment and devices, and then made it clear that this exemption for right-of-way public utilities does not apply to buildings or structures. So then you just turn to the table of permitted uses and see that I think it's a special use in all zones. Accessory dwelling units, there was concurrence to remove paragraph C on detached ADUs. So that has been removed here with the red stricken. And also ADUs above garages, obviously, because they would be detached. This is pertaining to detached garages. And then I wasn't really sure how to do this. There was some comment on we have to ensure that it never changes. And I don't think that's really necessary because you always have to conform with the ordinance. So, but I just put in the phrase, once established, the accessory unit cannot be used, rented, or sold as a separate dwelling unit. So I think that makes it clear. All right? Is that correct? Right. Yeah. I think that's sufficient to, if anyone changed, they had their grandmother living in there, and then she moved out or passed away, they could have, because they didn't change the use. A couple revisions to table 8. Trustee Muncy emailed me, asked about pole barns and garages, and to my surprise, detached garages and pole barns, although they were discussed at length during the zoning commission, they were not in this table. And I went back, and our current ordinance does not have them listed. That doesn't list detached garages. I should have caught this. Someone else should have caught it. So I added detached garages. They would be permitted in the rear and side yard, but not permitted in the front yard or corner side yard. And then the same with pole barns. I haven't really worked on definitions for those, but I think I can come up with some language for the next meeting. You can see that.
If I could, President McKay.
Sure.
There were several items that I had said that I wanted to discuss, but we had not discussed them yet. This is one of those items. While I appreciate Mr. Brown's addition here or efforts to do that, I think we still need to be on a list of things to be discussed. I appreciate that.
Well, as long as we're at this right now, this item addressed the concerns you expressed on this item.
Not on pole barns, no.
Okay, could we?
I don't want to, I mean, if you're okay with stopping here and discussing it, we can do it.
We might as well.
I have a couple of your items later on. They're coming up.
Granted, yes. I
mean, we can circle back, whatever.
Again,
Whatever's the most efficient. I mean, if you could tell us what those issues are, we may be able to get consensus on it.
Oh, sure. The pole barn, in the barn section on page 50, barn styles and farm buildings, does not include pole barns on residential properties. I take exception to that because many of the barns we have on our properties are pole barns. And if you look up what pole barn is defined as, it's a post-beam construction technique. The large Morton Building style barn that was just approved on the corner of 64 and Burlington is technically a pole barn. Just because there are not wooden poles in the ground does not mean it does not meet the definition. I would like to, and then also earlier or later, page 52 I think it is, where we talk about how important barns are and we should keep them and they're not non-conforming and that sort of thing. I think any reference to pole barn should be pulled out. Whatever construction technique, whether it's sticking timber or it's pole barn or whatever, I don't think we should be accepting it. And now here we have pole barns separate, where they would only be allowed in the rear and but not in the corner side. But barns are allowed. I mean, a pole barn's a barn. I would be in favor of removing that, treating a barn as a barn, as long as we whatever definition we have for barn, is that includes pole barns and includes timber frame or regular stick construction. Why accept it? Because it's going to pigeonhole a lot of our barns that are out there now. so that they could be non-conforming, and it may be a spot where we wouldn't allow. It's a barn, I would treat it the same.
So at that point, we'd ask, is there 4 people that concur with that revision? That's 3?
Yes.
That's 4.
And 4.
All right, so we now have that we'd like to discuss it and create a, is there anybody that has Jim, do you understand that definition change? Is there any problem with adding?
So you want to have pole barns allowed in any yard, you want to start at the table?
But looking at the table, we've
Yeah,
got
with the table,
in the front.
barns are currently allowed rear, side, corner siders. And then there's a parenthesis, this is on page 50. There's a parenthesis that says not include pole barn in residential. I'm suggesting we just remove that, strike that out. A barn's a barn.
And then, so you just strike those 4 words. And then in the use table, we did incorporate the change.
Okay.
Everybody's in agreement with that?
All right. All right, Jim, if you continue.
Then I'll continue.
So, home-based businesses.
Jim, we have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize. I have a related question about garages. There are also, I believe, quite a number of properties in the village where there is a garage that is also essentially in the side corner yard, right? So, if there's a detached garage, come up the driveway, there may or may not be an attached garage in front of you, or there's just a house in front of you, and then there's a garage to the side. This was not considered, unacceptable at one time. We have quite a number of residences that have this form of construction. So I'm in the same spirit. I question whether we should broaden the area in which is attached garage.
So allowed in the corner side yard.
Is there 4 hands for garages in the corner side yard? So you have consensus to make that change?
Okay.
Consensus.
All right.
If you now continue, Jim?
Yeah.
One more?
Yeah, while we're making comments as we go through, can we back up one? Is this gonna be what we're gonna make comments as we go through? Because I do have one at accessory dwelling units.
ADUs?
ADUs, yeah.
Well,
On
Jim
detached.
started out with
Detached.
ADUs.
Attached. Go back to the attached section.
Yeah, right here. So something that caught my attention on this is the line that says, ADU and existing primary dwelling unit shall share a party wall at least 20 feet in length. And the ICC building code as a definition of a party wall as any wall located on a lot line between adjacent buildings which is used or adapted for joint service between the 2 buildings shall be constructed as a firewall in accordance with 706, and party walls shall be constructed without openings and shall create separate buildings. So the idea of a party wall is that you are really creating 2 separate addresses or changing a single family residence to a multi-family residence. And I don't think that's the intention of this language. I think that a lot of our ADUs are going to be an addition that are connected without strictly separate entrances.
I would try to address that if we just take party wall and just say wall and not get into the definition.
Yeah, we totally can do that.
If we did that, would that suffice?
Yeah, I'll just say, I found it typical that the building code has one set of definitions that is very specific, it serves a purpose for building construction. The zoning code will have the same term or phrase and define it differently.
So we could just
It's
strike
better if you
party
just wanna
wall
strike
or
party
say
wall.
wall.
Now we have a
Simple.
consensus, good?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
perfect.
All right, moving on.
Home-based businesses, I think two changes here. We reached a consensus on the number of employees that could be working at a home-based business, non-family members, that is. It's two, it was reduced to one. And then there was a brief discussion on item 3, no toxic, explosive, flammable, etc. Materials shall be used or stored on site, and we added a phrase, beyond types and quantities typical for residential use. It's a suggestion from, I think, Trustee Muncy.
Okay,
All right?
all right. Moving on, that's great.
I understood that we wanted specifically to add, this is a list of permitted home businesses, and I'll note that this list is not intended to be all-inclusive, and to add massage therapy and mental health practitioners.
Any discussion? Okay. All right.
To barnyard animals, we get into this here right now, so there was a relatively simple suggestion, and that was to remove one sentence in paragraph A concerning water and feed.
And I think the reason for that was that the county and health department already regulates heavily if there is an abuse of the animal. We don't need to talk about how in the zoning code somebody waters or feeds their animals. So that was why that was, we captured, I think, what the discussion was on Thursday.
And then I think I think we can kind of stop right there. Well, we got two. I want to dive into the animals because that's what we need to reach some consensus on tonight, hopefully, and then the storage and parking. So I'll come back to that. And then I had additionally from, I think this is from Trustee Muncy, self-storage facility and driveways. And then we, one thing that I don't have up here on the slide was accessory structures, rather than changing the size, so.
President Wayne,
Yes,
I've emailed this 3 times now. So barns, yes, gravel driveway, self-storage facility, and dark sky protection. Those are the additional items we've not discussed yet that I'd like to make sure we get.
Any preference on how we?
I think we should just take them one at a
Going to the
time.
animals now, okay, all right, yeah. So for the animals, I want to.
We'll get them under other.
Ones I mentioned would be really quick. I want to jump in.
We want to finish, those aren't as controversial. We'll get those at the end because they're gonna be easy, I think.
I'll be tired. So, the way we discussed this afternoon, and the way that we want to go through this is start with a very broad question and then kind of drill down. And if there's consensus on the broad question, then there's no need to go on. So you'll understand it once I get into it. And so the first question, we're going to go into the barnyard or the animal stuff. Is there anyone here who desires to keep the draft regulations, Article 9, keeping of animals, exactly like it is?
which was.
Article
proposed by
9
the
covers
zoning-
everything, all of the
Yeah.
provisions on
Commission.
chickens, horses, goats, where there can be, the fact that there's really no limits on them, all of that. Just keep it as it was forwarded from the zoning.
From the zoning commission.
Well, I think we gotta be clear to the public, as the commission has said, at the public hearing and other hearings, there is not a total free-for-all of total unrestricted limits on the animals. The size of the lot, what else you have on your lot, and where your many things are existing will determine the numbers. There is not an absolute freebie in the 2024 limits. You back into it based on your own individual lot, how it's configured and what you have on it, where your, because we don't have city sewer, you have a septic field. And that could impact what you could or couldn't do on your it's freedom of the homeowner and flexibility, but it's not an unlimited quantity of animals. That's how it's arrived at, so there's not this misperception that anything goes. It's not a numerical limit, but it does back into a number based on your individual lot.
Yeah, includes some wetlands as well.
Exactly.
So, the question was, is there anyone who desires to maintain Article 9, keeping of animals, as it was forwarded, exactly as it was forwarded from the zoning?
All right, consensus?
1, 2, okay. So then, the next question is, how many people want to revise or alter in any way, insert, delete, change language on anything relating to any type of animal?
Mike?
Any, essentially, delete, add, and drill down, delete, add, revise on any type of animal.
Okay, Trustee Millette, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Usually I try to wait till the end, so I'm gonna do something a little bit different than start. So I was asked recently by Holly, I think actually, about the notes I had when I went to the zoning commission on the last night. And I said I don't talk from notes, I usually talk from off the cuff, but I made notes. But sometimes it's good to make notes, you don't forget things. I got an award a couple years back and I wrote notes for myself, said thank your wife, thank your daughter, thank your mom. And I didn't, it was hard to, when I was at my leadership retreat last week at Star Rock, which is where I made notes, it was hard to hear everything, but I thought I was getting through. So I'd like to preface a couple things to go back and then please continue the discussion. We're at a point where, you know, everybody likes to do whatever they want with their property until their neighbor does something they don't like their neighbor doing. I mean, that's generally the issue I've had through my whole public service is even when it's the right thing, even when it's okay, if it's bugging you, you want to let other people know why it's bugging you. Comment we had from the big zoning commission meeting at Bell Graham, paraphrasing, you can't tell me what I can do on my own property. Well, the reality is, yes, we can, to a limit. And the county was doing that before we became a village too. The key is we together decide through this process, annoying as it can be, and as laborious as it can be, to get what we want, or at least what we're equally willing to compromise to. The freedom to do whatever we want, I think there are places on this sphere we still can get 100 acres, say like in Livingston County, you probably should check the zoning there, but you want 100 acres, you want to drive your 74 Mustang, let it fuel added into it, have a tall boy cracked open, no seat belts, whatever, right? You can, you absolutely can. You can't endanger another human being against their will. And if you run into a tree, it's on you, you're on your own property. But we're not that. We're not 100-acre lots, right? We're, in some cases, 5, some cases 10, some cases 6/10 of an acre. So last year we had this process, and it has been mentioned. Some folks felt it was a nice, open, good process. We heard comments to that earlier, and some felt it was not. We heard comments to that earlier as well. Unfortunately, we've also had what I call a 2-to-1 legal opinion that it was valid. And for the clerk's edification, this is a joke, right? Counselor, what's 2 + 2? Depends on who you're asking. One of the cleanest lawyer jokes I have, and it's the truth. The legal interpretations of things can be a gamut. So we said, I don't believe that invalidated anything that was done. There was a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of great work that was done. But it was clear that enough folks in town were uncomfortable with it. So I think I used the term a couple times, belts and suspenders. So we think we may have done it legally, but let's just make sure, because now we have conflicting legal opinions, that maybe we didn't do everything exactly right, so let's open the process up again. which led to the zoning commission. The vast majority of the 2023 work is in what we're looking at now. When you look at zoning officer Brown's changes, what didn't change, what did change, the bulk of it's there, right? So that work was done. We're looking at it. We obviously have a few contentious issues that are remaining, and we're talking about them now: truck plates, accessory structures, lot coverage. I shouldn't write in the dark. Animals. And to the folks that said, if you phrase this properly, the zoning commission's work wasn't sacrosanct. In fact, when we did that work, the zoning commission repeatedly said to the effect, if the board doesn't like it, they can change it. The process is we can't just change it by a simple majority. So they sent this to us knowing there were things that they couldn't sort out. So if you have the opinion that we're disrespecting the zoning commission, I don't believe we are. None of the folks that I've talked to that served on the commission with me, I believe, feel that. But if we say that they didn't do it for the right intentions or anything, I don't think I'm hearing that from anybody, so I don't think we're disrespecting them. The 2023 draft, the original draft we had, that is by far the most liberal zoning ordinance in anywhere in Chicagoland, by far, in the 7-county region. There is no incorporated town that contemplated the things that we were contemplating. All our neighboring suburbs that I'm aware of, for example, what we're about to talk about, have a 5-chicken limit. Some of them require licenses. There's other mechanisms. Some allow horses, some don't. Some allow goats, some don't. We were talking about the topic we just passed over, flexibility on ADUs. We were talking about it before other towns were talking about it. And there are other towns, including my employer, that is now have approved, actually separated ADU. So the topic we're going on to right now. So I said, zoning officer Brown, a query, did I not? And the query was, what if I were a random person who bought a lot that just happens to look exactly like the lot I own? How many chickens could I have? And of course, the first answer is unlimited. No, that's not really the answer, as Administrator Rudy said, because there's other ways we back into it. So, looking out there back into it, considering I have a relatively small house and just one detached garage, I have 1,700 square feet of available accessory space. So I think I can get 170 hens in there. But within practicality, I have to have a coop. I have to have it on 120 square feet. I can shelf them. I can go like chicken farm and just put them really tight next to one another. I can maybe get 150 in there. But I think practically, we were going on more of the order of probably 80, because Janet and I went back and forth on it, potentially 80. That's a lot. And I don't think, and if I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll hear from it shortly, that we're really talking about that level of animals for lots of folks. So we want to support home-based businesses, back-to-nature lifestyles. I think we are supporting them both in the draft of the 2023 and then this draft now. But I think 170 or 90 or 80 is a lot. That's when you go away from domestic cooperative use to some sort of a business function. So I'm proposing, as we discuss this, I would like to try, and again, this can be revisited at any time, right? We gotta remember, this is just what we're gonna try for now. I'd like to propose a limit of 50, see if we can get consensus on 50, try that as it goes, and then the folks that are in that sphere already are cool. The ones that I think all have in the order of 10 to 12 now, you're cool on that. And then if we can get consensus on that, then I think the true challenge is roosters. Because, yeah, you're gonna need, if you have something, you should have a rooster, maybe you should have 2 roosters. We have a lot of concerns about noise, we have concerns about other things. You can't have all roosters, because to the point, yeah, you're doing something else if that's all you have. And I think we all realize that. So I don't think that's really what we intended. I don't think that's what the zoning commission intended when that was mentioned. So, that's, if we want to do an advisory referendum, maybe that's something we can look at doing. But I would propose if we can talk about maybe having and this wouldn't be a table, I think that's even though I know that, I think there was a lot of good work done on the table. I'm an engineer, I love tables. I understand that we lost the room on that concept. I understand that it itself is, it's got some stigma to it, so I would propose that we put it in the text, and it would be a sample. I mean, it would be, your lot may vary, your mileage may vary, the conformity of your lot, and to the point, and to the conversation I had with Holly about the difficulty in figuring that out. I got a simple lot, my septic field's in my front yard setback, which is off of town hall, so that 1,700 feet I told is free and clear. I can get it 30 feet from my neighboring lot. I mean, it could be done. And knowing that it could be done, that's a lot of birds. And that'd be expensive for me to have a lot of birds too. So I'd like to see if we can get something, at least on a traveling basis on 50.
And just as an add-on, not to critique you, but you can't run a business of raising birds for meat or egg sales on a residential lot. It's not a permitted home-based business. You can't have a business. It's gotta be private use, irrespective of whatever number you put on the chicken. So I think the question before is 50 on any size lot or chickens, does it have 4 bullets?
A lot of consensus.
Well, I mean, you've got 50, and if it fails, you'll put a different discussion item out for a different number. Is there one person, Mike? Two. Two.
So it fails.
It fails. Is there another number that Mr. Faulkner would like to?
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. So, I guess my thoughts on this are, with all the feedback and everything we've heard about numbers and chickens and different animals, there are kind of these fears, but there's nobody, I haven't heard anybody show any specific incidents in the village where there is this overwhelming issue of people having overpopulated homes where there's just these flocks of chickens creating a disturbance, where there are animal welfare issues with horses or barnyard animals. And I feel like what we're doing is we're starting to throw out numbers and regulations for a problem that doesn't actually even exist. I haven't heard what the issue is. I've heard families with kids that are raising chickens and all these great stories, and then I've seen articles of obscure kind of one-off, hoarders or people that are, just animal cruelty situations, but I'm not seeing some sort of a pandemic of animal cruelty in Camden Hills. The other thing that I saw was in a lot of these different municipalities, they have prohibited. They don't have a number at all. They show that the animals are just, it's a 0. And what that really says to me is that numbers don't work. So these different communities, which are significantly different than Camden Hills, Aurora, David, Geneva, St. Charles, they all have town neighborhoods, blocks, small lots, much different demographics. And when folks have chickens there, it could be a much different issue than it is out here in Camden Hills. So, but the prohibited part shows that, you either put a 0 on it or it's a lot. The numbers don't work. We say 25, we say 30. If someone goes to the Tractor Supply and gets chickens, they want to have chickens, they're not calling the village and saying how many chickens can they have. Are we going to go around counting chickens? It's either allowed or not allowed. And I feel like it's also setting a precedent. Now we're reaching in, we're telling folks what they can do on their land and what's the next thing. So now our village has created this, this precedent that, now we're going to start regulating what folks do on their properties. I think that's the whole reason why people live here. They can go somewhere with a lot of rules, but they chose to be in Camden Hills. So my suggestion would be, if we have to put any numbers or any limits on anything, it would be the R4 and R3. And that would be it, just purely because most of those homes, I think, are gonna be in an HOA anyway, that's gonna end up drilling down, and have their own unique rules with animals. Everything else, I would leave as allowed. We've got responsible animal owners. I haven't seen or experienced anybody who's not going to take better care of their animals on their own, and I don't think anybody needs the village's guidance. Nobody needs us to tell them what to do with their chickens, their livestock, what's on their property. So that would be my suggestion, to take a consensus on only doing a limit that I think we should also discuss on R4 and R3, which is really just negotiation, because I think it's reasonable. I mean, a 5,000 square foot lot, a 10,000 square foot lot, 50 chickens, nobody's gonna have 50 chickens. You know, someone's gonna come home with a half a dozen chickens, and, you know, they're gonna take care of them, and it'll be a beautiful thing. But that would be my suggestion.
Mike, you were next.
I love that altruism. That's awesome. The reason why the problem now is technically we don't allow it now. I mean, the county doesn't allow it either now for our type, for residential zoning. Right? We're talking about residential zoning. That's the thing. So yeah, maybe the point we look at a break between RE and R, because that okay, yeah, there's a an inherent smaller lot, different type of original subdivision built on those, under those zoning districts that we've looked at, and then maybe maybe on a RE1, yeah, that's huge. RE3, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we could talk about that maybe.
I think Ed was next, and then Tom.
Thank you, President. I concur with trustee Millette. King County doesn't allow it right now. We don't allow it in many cases, which may be resulting in why we don't perceive that it's a problem. We don't know, so residents aren't, just don't want to complain against their neighbor or whatever. However, I had said something in the last meeting that I wanted to go back and refresh my memory on, that what I refer to as a horse owners group supported a lot of the 2024, supported numbers, let's put it that way. And I went back and did that, and Ms. Nora Enzo spoke this evening, who I respect greatly, and has way more horse knowledge than I will ever have, not that I have any. But very impressive in that regard. Sent in a letter, January 25th, 2021, to the Planning Commission and Zoning Board that did in fact express her personal opinion that there should be, she removed the maximum number of horses or livestock. However, 2 weeks later, February 13th, this was during COVID, we were having Zoom meetings. Ms. Horseman's group had a meeting, and I quote from the post here: consensus was the current draft proposal, 1 acre minimum zoning for horses, half acre for horses workable, but that's not the important part. Now we're talking about chickens. Regarding chickens, much discussion and debate about how to balance the need for chickens to be in groups and meet residents' needs for eggs, etc., without allowing large flocks or free-range chickens disturbing neighbors on small adjoining lots. The subgroup recommends a 1/4 acre minimum lot size to have chickens, and then have up to 32 chickens on lots up to 5 acres. The Horse Owners Group actually submitted a written recommendation on February 11th, 2021, that for chickens, I think is a pretty good idea. 8 to 10 chickens per 1/4 acre. So the smaller lots you start at 8, which is the largest number of any of the communities around us. And then you build that up. Once you get to 1 acre, you have 32 chickens. So 8 hen chickens per 1/4 acre lot area may be raised and kept, not to exceed a maximum total of 32 hens on lots under 5 acres. Now we could discuss maybe on the REs, maybe it's more than 32, but I like what they came up with. They have a lot more knowledge about this than I do, and I was basically just kind of listening at that point. But they also said roosters are allowed only on lots of 5 acres or more. So that was the consensus and the written recommendation at that point in time. I think it's a good group of people that would know this a lot more than I do, and I would suggest that that's a working number to consider.
Tom, go ahead.
I kind of took a tally of what people were saying out in the crowd, and also included people that email us. Here's what I got. No one discussed trucks. We've got 6 people that are very pro-animal, which is great. Nobody really discussed, like, I wanna have as many as I want. I didn't hear that. I heard, oh, I have 12 chickens, oh, I have a goat, I have this. It's not like I wanna go crazy. But then again, I got people that are very worried about less. They wanna limit. They wanna be like, hey, my neighbor, I want something to stop them from going nuts, okay? Now, I don't know about you guys, I live in an HOA. I got people that don't weed whack. I got people that don't do anything. They don't trim a bush, they don't do anything. Don't tell me people do stuff just because they feel like doing stuff nice. That's ridiculous. I live in a neighborhood where people park trucks in their front yard. I had a guy park one for 6 months. We couldn't stop it. The guy wasn't going to do it. He wasn't listening to the HOA. It had nothing to do with the village. But I'm telling you right now, even the rooster thing, okay, we had 8 against, we had 2 for. Really, that's what I got. So what I'm saying is, we have a limit on dogs here. Does anyone know that?
Yes.
This thing has a limit on dogs. 3. Why can't I have 12? I like dogs. Can I have 12 dogs? Why are you limiting my life on dogs? You know, I hate to say it, but zoning is numbers. Zoning is numbers. Okay, when a guy comes out and says, okay, I'm going to put my house on this lot, do we measure it? Yes, it's a number. It's a number. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sick of hearing this counting thing. Because that's all zoning is counting. And I'm starting to get a little upset about it because I'm almost getting to the point where I'm getting dumber by hearing it. And I'm not knocking anybody with animals. I'm not. I think everybody out there should have the animals they have. I do. I agree with that. What I think, the only thing I disagree with, I guess, I mean, if I had to say it was, yeah, I don't want to count animals. I really don't. I don't think we have the capability of counting them here. But I think for the peace of mind for the people that don't want it, there's an equal amount. And I'm not talking about people in my HOA. I'm talking about people in the Netherlands, the people that are out there in the distance that don't have HOAs. I know why you moved there. I get it. I moved away from my village myself. I wish we could come up, I would agree with your point, and I do agree with you, Mike. I guess we're talking about chickens here, but what if we just come up with a, hey, don't go over this amount of animal units, okay, whatever that might be. I mean, because I'm cool with the chickens. I just think, I want the little old lady sitting there that, you know, her husband died, and this is a possibility, because I know how people, they do go on. I just don't want the lady to feel like the best thing she's got is to come over and go, hey, I got this guy making noise, he's got 50 chickens, he's got 50 dogs. I mean, whatever it might be, we limit things, we limit to measurements. That's all I'm saying. So I think somewhere between this chart that we had from 2023, which is very specific on animals, and somewhere between a gross amount of people or animals on a property would be a number. I think that kind of satisfies everybody's need. If somebody here wants to go over 50 units of animals on their property on 3/4 an acre, I'm like, there's pills for that. Cheaper. Go get a pill. I got you. Get you a doctor. I mean, come on, people. That's all. I think there's an easy answer. I think there's a way of coming to. I'm new to the board, but I'm looking at I'm seeing differences of opinion here from a lot of different people. I'm just trying to come to consensus. And I think that's the way I would like to see it. So if you came up with a proposal where it was animal units, if there's an animal unit number, I could just say, okay, at least when a year from now I'm at the grocery store and this lady doesn't want to come, she's like, hey, you're the guy. You're the guy that voted to let my neighbor go gonzo. And hey, come on, there are people in this world. I'm sorry, man. I mean, I don't know what world you live in. I love you. I do. I like that. I run a business. Okay? I had to fire stupid all the time. I did. That's what I did for a living. I fired stupid. There's a lot of crazy people and crazy ideas. I don't see this fantasy land where people just do the right thing. Or we wouldn't have speed limit signs. We wouldn't have stop signs. I mean, these are numbers. These are numbers. I think me and Mike are kind of like, let's get to something in the middle here. Where we limit this. Because I think what this is doing to the neighborhood is even worse. Okay? This is not good. This is not good what's happening in the neighborhood. Okay? This is, villages, the whole point is we're in this together, number one. Number two, I don't believe that it leads to a lot of infighting. I don't think there's this anti-animal group. I really don't. I don't think there's an anti-animal group. I don't think people with animals are crazy. I don't. I have no problem. It's just, we need to come to consensus that the people with the animals are very happy with the situation they have, and then there's the other end of the spectrum, like we heard from the crowd also. It's just like, please give me something to hang my hat on. That's all it is.
Tom, I've got to thank you for your comments. It's just us. Jim is next. You wanna?
Yeah, just
have
a,
word?
just
Yeah.
a couple of comments. I'm kind of in the same camp. You know, I hear how, you know, no numbers, and it drives me crazy. And I had this conversation with Administrator Rooney, because you have to be measured. You have to have something black and white, or as I said at the last meeting, you will create the Hatfields against the McCoys. And I don't want neighbor against neighbor. Ed just, Trustee Muncy just made a comment about some neighbors don't want to do the fight. Maybe they just move because they can't put up with what's next door to them. And I think we're playing Punch's Pilot. I think we're washing our hands of it by saying there's no numbers. And we have to come up with a numerical number, and we have to somehow find that consensus of what that is. And then, you know, we used to be under Kane County's rules. They had numbers. And what did, as Trustee Millette said, what was created by the last board, which, by the way, also came to that board unanimous from that planning commission, just as it did with this one, that was also unanimous. We spent a lot of time on these numbers, and it drove us crazy. I think I lost all my hair during the last time we had this discussion. And we ended up with something that was, as Trustee Muncy said earlier, it was the most liberal zoning ordinance around. And now we're taking that needle and we are just flattening it to La La Land. And I don't want to be part of La La Land, and I can't support no numbers. So I'm willing to chop wood, as I said at the last meeting. I think large legislation, such as a zoning ordinance, should be unanimous. And the only way to get to unanimous is by everybody giving. And if one side wants to dig in and say, no, we don't want any numbers, you're not getting my vote. And I think you can get my vote, but we gotta chop wood. And chopping wood means rolling up their sleeves and working at it. So, thank you.
Well, I think that you had 0, that didn't have consensus. 50 was too many and didn't have consensus. Would you settle on 25 chickens on all lots? Would that be?
Could I reframe this? Because I know.
Okay.
So, it seems like we want some numbers, right? And I'll remind you, what the last question I asked was, did you have locational issues or number issues? So there's two things to consider. Just keep that locational issue. I put the chart up on here. So right now, the basic question is, do you want a not to exceed number that would be valid just straight across the board? 20 chickens, 50 chickens, 80 chickens, we're not talking about a number. Or, you can ask that, or would you want that number based on some other factor, such as lot size? So do you want first of all, do you want a not to exceed? Is that clear? You want per chicken, just talking about chicken.
It's not clear. Do we want one not to exceed number for all size lots of yours?
That's the first question. So like 80 chickens, regardless of where you live, as long as it's in that table up there, and chickens right now are allowed across the board. You can't, whatever the number we decide, would you want to approach it that way? Or do we want to, I'm just trying to funnel the discussion here. Or do we want to decide on something like a ratio based on the lot size and have the number based on it?
One of some of the smaller lots may not
Mike,
be approved.
no, you have to be.
We'll get to that here, let's
recognized.
let's work on maybe altering the table here, but is that clear?
Mike, do you wanna?
Yeah, I mean, there's a natural break between a state and not a state. That's one way to look at it on a, you know, yeah, you could say RE is a higher number, you say RE is 50, and then you could look at the R 2, 3, and 4 as it's something that is proportional to lot size, because there's a lot of variance. There's variance in all lot sizes, I get that. But, you know, when you start to get up to 2 and 3, you're big, right? So, I mean, you could probably massage it more on a situational basis, because then maybe it's area, like you were talking about, and some of those don't have septic, so that would eliminate that as a detriment too. So, I mean, sure.
So, do you have a number that you guys can live with, RE being not to exceed 50 and the other lots 25 as an example? Is that a starting point of discussion that you could look at? To take Mike's point.
15 Yeah, the REs,
Is there, it's a starting point, is there a consensus to go as high as 50 for the RE lots? Show of hands.
How big is an area lot, just for clarification? What's the size? 1 and a quarter. 1 and a quarter. Yeah.
The small.
But you start at 50, is that too high? Then you go down to 40. Is 40 guys on the RE, is that a limit that you can live with? We were just talking about numbers, Nick, we're not gonna do philosophical. We've already got doing philosophical.
I'd like to hear next time.
What's that?
I'd like to hear next time.
Have a comment? Nothing philosophical. Thanks, Omar. So I guess my point was avoiding the counting. You know, we're not going to go out and count chickens. So my question would be, like on an RE1 lot, a 5-acre lot, what is more than what most people would actually have? I mean, if we had 100 chickens allowed on an RE1 lot, we had 75 chickens on an RE2, and we kind of worked our way down at numbers that were exceeded what someone would actually have. I mean, we're gonna end up putting ourselves at a point where, again, we're going out and counting chickens. There's a reason that all these examples where they would probably be okay with people having 5 chickens in St. Charles and Batavia, but they don't wanna count chickens, so they prohibit them altogether. I mean, that's the number that they get.
That's roosters. That's roosters.
Right. This is also roosters?
Yeah, it's all roosters.
This is just roosters?
Just roosters.
Okay.
So that's why it's prohibited, because they're roosters.
Got it.
Has nothing to do with chickens.
So to be, but, if I may,
Go ahead.
to be clear, we've already decided that as a board, we are not okay with no numbers. Correct?
That's why you're having a discussion. to set
Exactly.
the number.
I know I'm stepping back and stating the obvious, but I mean, a discussion to go backwards to say why we're putting numbers on, we've already passed that. Looking at adding numbers per district, we're back to what, you know, Trustee Millet said, clearly it has had that specter of bad is the 2023, which allowed up to 45 chickens. Apparently that's not enough. Apparently some people are saying that's an HOA rule or way too restricted. I don't know why that's out there in the ether, but I mean, we thought it was based on this. This is starting to get into, I think, a number out of the air. I think I would be in favor of 2 dozen and 4 dozen, or you know, something 25-50 or something like that with a break between residential and residential estate, unless we've got to get back into the table, which I favored to begin with. So, you know, it's up to you guys on that one.
I think go 25.
25 across the board?
25, I think, he's saying 25 on the smaller lots,
On the
they're not
smaller lots.
REs.
Yeah.
The REs would be 50, and 25 for all RE. That's, got 2 hands, is there?
1, 2, consensus?
So it's 25. Just repeat it one more time.
It was up to a max of 50 on all the RE lots, and 25 on anything that was R1, 2, or 3, 4.
I'll go with that.
So is there?
Okay, 1, 2, consensus, 3?
No, 4. I think we have 4. We have 5.
Okay.
So we have 6, Jim, so change it to.
All right, so, okay, so the next question is, this table, you're good with chickens, not talking about roosters, now chickens, all the way through R4.
Check.
Yes.
Check? Okay, that was easy. All right, let's stick with the birds. Roosters. Roosters.
This should be just a yes or no. If you, right now, they're not restricted in the 2024. Is there hands to ban roosters? Because currently they're not. Ban them on all lots. That's what, residential the residential lots, not on farms, but
No, let's go to the way you asked the other question.
I agree.
Is there a consensus that we keep 124 the way it is, which allows roosters on all lots?
Yes, that's.
On all lots?
that's what it is now.
Right, yeah, you see, it's
Do
very.
you want to change the roosters essentially then from what, 2024?
That's two different questions. Do you want to keep it as it is right now? That's how you asked it previously. Let's just keep it consistent. Who wants to keep it as is, no restrictions on roosters?
We have two, so therefore now we have to discuss if you want to ban roosters.
Well, I think the question is, you want to ban them from specific zones. That's what's
The
in it.
R2, 3, and 4.
Yeah,
The small lots.
Start with that.
Who, so let me ask, who would want to ban, roosters all over the building? Okay, is that very clear? Who would want to ban roosters based on the zoning district, which I throw in my 2 cents, I would prefer rather than lot size. It's the zoning district, and let's stick with the same break, start with the same break that we have for chickens between residential estate and residential. You want to break that?
2,
That
3.
means roosters on 1.25 acres. Yeah.
Right, that would be our
So on the RE lots, roosters would be allowed, but on the R1s, 2, 3, and 4, they would not. That's what's being voted, that's the vote.
Keep in mind, our R1 lots are bigger than the RE
The
lots.
public's not part of the discussion, sir, just.
Yeah, just so you know.
I think they should be allowed on 1, 2, 3, and 4 in a smaller amount. I don't think they should say they're not allowed.
Where's the 4?
I think we should put a number on them. They're the smaller ones.
President Lincoln, if I may, since we're getting a lot of discussion, I think we need to take an alternate way of looking at this. Let me start with the largest lot, the RE1, which is 4 acres plus. Poll the group, ask if we would allow 1 rooster, or if you want to ask roosters, then we'll figure out the number afterward. Would you allow roosters on the RE1 and work your way down until you see you don't have 4 acres? I like that.
Okay, I think that's the easiest way, to say, yes, a rooster can exist on a 4 acres. Is there-
Only is 5. That's right. Okay.
So is there consensus to let a rooster exist on the RE1, which is 4 acres? That's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Now go to RE2, that's 3 acres. 3 acres.
No, it's 2 acres.
It's up there on the screen now, I think.
Yeah, there's a.
Consensus, 2 acres, rooster. 1, 2, 3, 3.
Do you want to vote?
I say yes.
All right, so they're allowed Jim Brown on RE1 and RE2.
Okay.
RE3, which is the 1.25 acres, is there any
Consensus.
consensus to add in there?
Rooster, yes.
There's 2.
3.
And that's what's that? 1.25?
Yes.
Court.
There are 3 yeses, it needs 4.
Yeah. I say no on that one.
All right, so then that's your break. So it's just allowed on RE1 and RE2 is the consensus tonight.
And is there any limit on the number of roosters you can have?
On the number?
No, you have more than 1 rooster.
3. Primary, dominant, and 1. But you're not gonna have 5. 3. 3 sound good, Mr. Folk?
Consensus.
Is there consensus to allow 3 roosters on the RE1 and RE2? 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
All right, so it's 3 on those 2 lots. Sizes.
Yep.
ban everywhere else.
Okay.
All right.
So, I didn't hear any discussion on bees, so that's fine, so maybe we just go to the horses, the equines up here next. I think that was the other thing. And kind
Yeah,
of take.
I've got one question on bees.
Okay.
You took out the language for swarming and all that, which last time, I remember the board, we actually talked to a number of beekeepers. A prior board member was a beekeeper. I think they talked to somebody in the Illinois Beekeeper Association. And I don't have it, I don't know the page number, you can pull that up. But the whole swarming thing, we kind of changed all the verbiage that we had in terms of making sure there's some barrier so that when the bees leave the hive, they start up 6 feet or higher. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, this is what the beekeepers told us. They can go over to the next door's neighbors where they have a little kiddie pool and sting people. You risk that when they swarm. And what I hear, we just said, well, we go after them if they sting somebody, then we'll go after them for doing it. That seems crazy. I'm trying to understand why we took language out.
I think if you could go to the B section, Jim, and read, I think there is protection still from that, because it's a setback, and then it also talks about to get that 6 foot height so they go out.
Honey, page 14, I apologize, it's on page 14, I didn't hear.
But, yeah, but honeybees don't generally swarm, they just, that's a lot.
Again, my only pushback on that, Administrator Mooney, is that we talked to beekeepers, and I'm just telling you, they said that language was acceptable. So all I'm saying is by removing it and saying swarming could result in fines or other adverse actions, again, I think we're punting. Beekeepers were fine with that. I'm just asking why. So, thank you.
Jim, can you show what we changed? I don't remember
Well,
which change.
yeah, there was a requirement, and I'm trying to recall, someone. Yeah. Anyway, it didn't make it. All I know is.
Yeah.
I think that just to the change, as I recall, the flyaway barrier was if you were less than 25 feet from the lot line. So the draft ordinance, the 24 draft ordinance doesn't allow that at all. So you have to be 25 feet from the lot line to start with. So therefore, the way it was written last time is if you were going to be closer than 25, you would need to have that barrier to force them to go up before they were they'd be over the neighbor's property. So in some ways, I would view that as better if we were on a tight lot to still be allowed to do it. We've made it right now more restrictive than it was in the 20.
More safe, Jim. It's more safe.
Yeah, I see that point up there, about the 25 feet.
Horses, on the horses.
So on to horses. So, who would not want to, who wants to keep the provisions regarding horses the same as they are now? That's with no limits, and, we can put the chart back up. Yeah. So, horses are allowed down to the R1 zoning district. They are not allowed in R2, R3, and R4. If I switch back, so we're talking about R2 is 15,000 square feet. So horses would be allowed on lots that have a minimum lot size of 30,000 square feet.
So was the question right now, location?
Just keep.
You mentioned numbers and location.
Yeah, so, no, the question was keeping all the provisions the same. That was the key.
So, do you want to accept what the 2024 zoning commission has recommended? So, a show of hands of yes, you want to not change it.
Weren't they permitted on the R2, R3, and R4 as well? What if they're already existing there? Grandfather, okay.
accepted as it's been presented to you from the zoning commission.
Good, 1, 2.
Okay. So, is there any desire to impose limits on the number of horses in the districts, any of the districts?
Okay, next one.
Well, everybody didn't raise their hand. Yes.
Two,
I mean,
Upper
three.
limits on horses,
if we, yeah.
to impose limits, numerical limits.
On the number of
4.
animals?
On horses, yeah. Horses, donkeys, women.
Okay, look like we have 4.
All right, so we want to impose limits, so that just, from here, I'd just like to hear from you.
Discussion. Mike, go ahead.
The county is still one animal per acre or fraction thereof.
Mhm.
That's been working. I don't think there's an issue with that. And this is one of those things where we're carrying on. The difference here, again, we're a little bit more liberal than the county because we've defined equines more, right? We allow more under that definition than the county does. So I think that's a good thing for us. We're not just saying it has to be a horse. You know, we've got donkeys and mules and other things like that. So I think, and to the point was made when we had this discussion with the, I'm blanking. Ponderosa and North Empire, what's that subdivision? Palomino, thank you, Palomino. It kept the question, thank you, kept the question. You know, when we went through that concern there, the bigger concerns from Sandy, Quincy and those guys were, you know, the paddock and the stable, and we've already, you know, moved away to allow lean-tos and those sort of things, so that's also different than the county. But none of them are saying we want 10 horses. So I think we could, you know, consider that a pass-through and then a bonus for our folks that, you know, it's more than just your traditional horse.
Ed, go ahead.
I also have recently, again, just confirms past conversations with both the horse owners group and those that live in Canton, Western States, and the Kane County and many other counties' requirement for, you know, an acre of horse is based on feeding that horse on the land, not necessarily just feeding them grass hay. So it was decided in the past by the horse owners group that we need to have a minimum lot area of 1 acre to have horses, so it would remove it from that's 0.069 acre to R1, it would keep it in the estates districts only. Again, this is a past recommendation. And then for horses on a lot with a manure management plan, in other words, they're removing their manure by dumpster or something, maximum number of horses was 1 horse per 1/2 acre. So as you move up, you obviously can have more horses. So 1 horse per 1/2 acre, starting at the RE3 is the past recommendation, and I've talked to a number of people in that group that continue to say that's a workable number, and that's one they were happy with.
With the manure management?
Yes.
With the manure management plan for 2 per half an acre?
Correct.
Yeah,
For all of them. With the manure management plan, you can have 1 horse per half acre.
That's right.
And that's already in, I believe it's still in 2024, so
Okay.
it's off the manure management.
It is.
Yes.
And that's with all the REs, correct?
Yeah, and you'd start off essentially with 1 and finish with up to 8 under that calculation. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Consensus? All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, and I just want to clarify, Jan, or trustee Burson is correct, you can have 2 with the manure management plan, you don't want to have 1 lone horse.
Oh, yeah.
You go up to 2 and then finish with 8.
All right. Consensus is yes.
All right, and then, so there's no change to RE1 through R1? No change there? Not sure.
Well, I mean, there needs to be a change, because the 2024 allows it in R1, and we're saying no, only in the residential states, and that's, someone's gonna ask a question, that's why it's suggested.
So it's just in the RE.
All right, just in the RE, okay. So R1 will be deleted. On to barnyard animals, this is goats. Fowl was in there, rabbit, we could insert that back in, it was brought up last time. All the other animals. Again, question, start, how many would like to accept the draft regulations regarding barnyard animals is forwarded from the commission. We already made one change.
I only saw 2 hands.
Okay, yeah, no, I did too. So from here, I guess, this is, just open up the discussion here. I mean, there's different things on shelters, the types of animals, the numbers of animals. I'm not sure where we want to go.
Are we adding sheep, which was removed for some reason?
Yeah, the commission was strongly against sheep.
Okay.
I think they defined livestock on farm crops.
And
It says sheep, cattle, not cows. Livestock.
Yeah.
The game on the farm.
I have a
Ed?
suggestion, thanks. Just due to the difference in size, I think maybe to try to get to some type of consensus here, we consider a multiplier. Maybe if you get an X number of horses, it's times 3 for other barnyard animals. Based on the fact that they're generally smaller. Now, I'm getting at practice, I've seen some of those animals that are not lumps, that's one. Other things, they're small, so maybe the multiplier, I'll throw out a 3 as a multiplier, get 3 more of those, and you put it up to 4.
Do you want to allow the barnyards on the chart, though, they were allowed in R1? Do you not just want to keep them strict with the REs as you did the equine, or do you want to let them go to one smaller?
I would suggest one smaller, because there's a lot, much smaller animals. Well, I want to talk about which animals we excluded.
They go back to the chart.
There are smaller animals, so I think you could move it down to a smaller property.
Looks like there's a consensus to move it down 1.
He was asking.
Oh, you want it? Okay, so if we could get to the chart,
Yeah.
barnyard animals are allowed as the recommendation down to R1. Is there, and then there's a consensus to keep that? Yes, looks like we are. And now the next question is, do you want to go with the multiplier of 3 to the equine? Okay, you got a question.
I'm not sure if 3 is the right number.
Times 3.
I got it. I'm not sure, what animals were multiplying, to get to that. So in particular, rabbits, that were brought up last time. Rabbits were not mentioned in the zoning ordinance, the draft ordinance, as I understand it, because we're not regulating rabbits. So I know there are people in the village that actually raise rabbits for food, and so I don't know how many rabbits they raise, and we could get into a whole conversation like we did about chickens, but when we're talking about rabbits, 3 times however many number of horses you can have doesn't seem like very many rabbits to me.
So rabbits, so Jim Brown, rabbits weren't regulated in the 2024 recommendation, so.
They were not.
So is everybody okay with not regulating rabbits?
No. I had a question about that, and the types of animals, I want to discuss that at some point. I think the question is more for the village attorney. If we don't include something as permitted, then it's generally not permitted, correct?
If it's, the way that it's written right now in the 2023, the current ordinance, it does have a list of what these animals shall be classified as. So if it is not included, then it would not be permitted. Now, if it's a list that is like generally includes, say, I think that might be in 2024 ordinance, I'm not sure if it's in this section, then it's just a general inclusion. So it would not be prohibited if it's not listed.
But
That's a whole base business.
that's fine, that's a great explanation of something that's something else. But as written, animals permitted is very specific, and I think they intended it to be that way.
Yeah.
And so if it's not on the list, you can't have it.
That's what it would mean.
Okay, and that's why I wanted to discuss why the zoning commission thought sheep were different than goats. or a llama, why they didn't include the most popular 4-H animals, sheep, rabbits, and guinea pigs, turkeys, and why the heck anybody put guinea fowl back in there?
Yes.
I don't know. So those, I mean, maybe we're not there yet, but I'd like to discuss that. I think the list is, I would prefer to be a little different.
Jim?
Yeah, like I said, the guinea pigs, fish in someone's backyard pond, I tell you right now, no staff's gonna go out right there. I mean, we just are. I mean, we got salamanders, they outside. It's like, how can I come up with an entire list? There's just some things, and I will say this about code enforcement, okay? It's maybe not what you think. There's a lot of discretion. As far as numbers, there's not always numbers. Most of the nuisance code doesn't have numbers. I can think of 2 examples in a previous town where I got called out on construction debris in someone's yard. One of them, there was blocks stacked up. That guy was told to move it. The second place, there were 3 planks, 2x4x12, laying along the house. I told the complaining guy, I'm not gonna touch that. There's a lot of discretion that goes on. So when you get into something like guinea pigs, rabbits, fish, I can't come up with a list of every animal, every conceivable animal that someone might have. That's just why we formed the list this way. The guinea fowl was thrown out, was not taken out. I don't really have any, I don't care one way or the other about guinea fowl, guinea pigs, whatever. But I think guinea pigs, to me, that's something that when I grew up, people had those in their homes. Sometimes rabbits too. So, if you want to add anything in, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I'm just saying, some of this we're
I think we should add rabbits to barnyard.
Everything that's in it.
Yes. Add rabbits to barnyard animals.
That's fine.
Make a suggestion that concurs with
Sure.
President White said. I'd like to add rabbits. We can keep the other animals out. As I said last time, if you've ever gone to a real county fair, guinea pigs are not your indoor variety. The ones that they raise for 4-H, they're huge. And that's what we're trying to encourage here. I sent over a website. So anyway, we had something in the last one which I thought was good, and I don't know why it was removed. Because we can't make an all-inclusive list. I can't list all the animals. I would like to add rabbits, and then I would like to add back other generally well-accepted domesticated livestock animals not specifically permitted herein may be applied for, from the village or with a special use permit or something. In other words, you can ask. If it's not on the list, you can ask to have something else. We didn't contemplate that.
Well, that's just the staff discretion that would normally occur anyway. That's what normally occurs.
I think we have a different legal definition and discretion definition. So, I'd like to, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Legally, it's enforceable. So if we have a different staff or a different board, that discretion might be changed. I want it to be legally accurate.
Well, I understand, and there's another general principle. The village doesn't have, there's nothing that compels the village to enforce its own ordinances either. So, you're right on that. There's all types of discretion that goes on a daily basis regarding it.
So, the language that's up on the screen is I think it's in the definitions, right?
Yeah.
Right, so that defines what barnyard animals is, at least what's proposed. And then later on in the code, it speaks of barnyard animals are, this section governs keeping barnyard animals in all zoning districts where they're permitted pursuant to the table in 1, 2, 3. It really could be read that this is not an exclusive list. If there's an animal that's not on this list that would, some people might think was barnyard animal. So stronger language, if you're looking to restrict the types of animals, you would say are limited to these types of animals. Now, there's also language in, I think it was, there's another section that talked about the types of animals, at the beginning of Article 9, the median paragraph that says these provisions do not apply to animals typically kept as household pets, such as but not limited to the following: dogs, cats, rodents, and reptiles. Now, that says such as but not limited to, so there could be animals that are included in the barnyard animals list, or if you include rabbits, that could be considered a pet, but it would not control that. So if you do want to restrict the types of animals, and you want to classify them as barnyard animals, I would have a restricted list.
So we do have another list under livestock. That's what she
and that's for rooster.
Livestock.
All right. Tom, do you have a comment?
Yeah, is there, can we handle the barn animals kind of like, I mean, include rabbits, but handle them kind of like we're handling the chickens? Just get, you know, this is a not to go crazy number, okay? Just to make people feel at peace that they don't think they're gonna get destroyed on numbers. That's kind of where I'm at on this. I don't know what you might say, ideas on
Yeah,
that?
Mike, go ahead.
The multiplier is not a bad idea. I think we have to make a provision that currently there's no equaling on R1, so that the multiplier is 0, so we'd have to say 3. And, I mean, we should have sheep back in there, because you're right, that's one of the most popular 4-H, my buddy Al Kirkland, been raising sheep for 30, 25 years. So, I think that, and then, yeah, we gotta get guinea hens, that's just, you know, we would hear those miles away all the time. And then, I mean, am I hearing we wanna regulate rabbits? I mean, rabbits are generally pets.
No, we should include rabbits. Yeah.
No,
Like saying.
to regulate them.
We
You
should.
don't want to, no, right, we don't want them on the list.
No.
They're pets. And that, yeah, so I think, so we have to pull
The barnyard animal.
sheep out of livestock. I think nobody wants hogs, right? We're all cool with that, right? Bison. No bison. Or if you want one, it's a special use. And then could you scroll back to the barnyard animals real quick? Because, well, to add sheep, take out guinea hens or fowl, and I think there was one other. You're scrolling on a laptop. I was doing that last night.
Control
C, okay. Alpacas, yes, it's essentially a hoofed animal. Okay, ducks. I mean, yeah, ducks, geese. I mean, I know the and swans. I know the conversation. They wanted to try to have it as not chickens. That's what the zoning commission was going after. But I don't know if the multiplier works for those animals. I mean, and the multiplier based on size of the hoofed animals and their, rough poop production, manure production, and wanting them to herd animals. So on a R1, you need 3 of them so they can paddle around, that type of thing. So I think I'm good with that, but I'm not sure what to do about the fowl.
Ed, go ahead.
Thanks, President Winnicky. There was a break previously between small barnyard animals and size or large, and then horses were different. So that's one way to address the smaller ones. To be clear, I don't want to regulate rabbits. I want to allow people to have some barnyard rabbits. They're not pets. They're cute and cozy in their house. That somebody said they're going to probably eat them. I think a few of those should be allowed. That's why I thought it should be added to the list. Or maybe if they want to have barnyard pets, that's fine too. Whatever you do with them out there is, go on, that's fine. The other thing is to include, because we only now are including ducks. There's geese are large. I mean, you could include fowl, poultry, and fowl, and chickens. That's a lot of geese.
But you want to strike the guinea.
I think we all agree on striking the guinea.
Is there very loud?
Yes. Okay. And then Trustee Malek and I concur, suggested that we add back sheep as one of the barnyard animals. Do we agree on that?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's see.
And then to deal with the smaller barnyard animals, maybe we could do a multiplier of animals over X pounds and I know, it's I don't know how to come up with something.
Well, do you even feel that you need to put a limit on these animals? Are you okay with just striking sheep as not a livestock is now allowed? And then you've eliminated it beginning with fowl or loud, because it will be a problem. And about the number, we just let people live and let live.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that sounds nice, but it's not very fair to the chicken folks, because we're regulating, we're saying how many they can have to prevent a problem, but you can have as many goats as you want. And I think we need to go with some kind of number.
Have you ever been to Ireland?
Janet was first, so hold on.
I wouldn't be counting any of these animals, but, I feel like turkeys is missing, I don't see it on any of our lists. So I think if people can believe they're raising turkeys, I'd like to continue that.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
You know, what I'm hearing from the crowd, or at least the people I've talked to, everybody's in, you know, some people are more of a broad range of animals, for that. Like, I know people that have goats, chickens, you know, they're into rabbits. It's just like their preference of what they like to grow and eat, or whatever. Or some people are talking, you know, chickens, it's because their kids like them, or, you know, one person's walking their goat in the neighborhood. That's why I'm kind of thinking like a number that would be like, okay, 2 max, not to exceed. You know, in other words, you tailor it to your thing. We're not telling you what to have, what kind of animals, how many you can have. I mean, specifically. Because I think that gets crazy. I think we're talking about, we're gonna drive this guy nuts. We're gonna send somebody out and they're gonna be going, okay, so you're over 2 goats, but you're down 2 chickens. Now, how about just like a broad number, just to say, hey, okay, you just kind of have to, like, you know, somewhere you're gonna have to call the Animal Fest over, and you're just gonna have to say, well, hey, I guess I can't get any more animals. I mean, I only have this big of a property, I'm not gonna go over this. But I think it'd be specific, I think it's more of like a general size. Now, the only problem, I get it with the bigger animals. Maybe we break that out and say, okay, so many of these and so many of these. And that's it. I don't know, am I crazy, or is that, I'm just trying, I wanna keep it open to people to choose what they want, but not, once again, my sole purpose in this, living in an HOA neighborhood and not living in these places that don't have it, is I am trying to do my best that I just don't want, other than nuisance, I want to keep something from going crazy. That's all. And so that would be my goal.
Is there a desire to break it on, as you discussed as a group, on the animals with hooves, use your multiplier, and the other ones, just do it by nuisance? Could that be peace in our time? That we use the 3 multiplier and not 0 for R1, just do the 3 and a multiple of horses on the RE lots for hoofed animals, that's the generally bigger ones. And the other number of animals, the, you know, the duck and the goose and the swan, unless we get a complaint of noise, we're not doing it. Because it's hard to put a number on a number of rabbits and until we have a problem, we don't need to solve it. Would that work? So Ed, would you restate it and see if we got the consensus?
I don't think I can restate it any better than you did, but for hooked animals, there would be a multiplier of the number that is around 3, which is still up for discussion, but a multiplier of 3, so if you can have, for example, 2 horses, then you could have 6 hooked animals. But the other animals, ducks, geese, turkeys, which I would be in favor of adding back in as well, those would be no numerical limit on the small ones.
Is that peace? Show of hands, consensus.
Yeah, just for clarity on the lot size again.
No, R1 would be 3 for the hooked animals. And then it goes up.
R1 being what, acre lot?
0.69 acres.
3/4.
It's basically 3/4 of an acre, you could have 3 hooked animals.
Let's go consensus on that.
Are we open to changing it to 4? I mean, when you think about it, someone has 3 little goats, does it matter if they have 4? You know what I mean, when you're really picturing, you know what I mean? So, given like we're coming up with arbitrary numbers, but think about it, like, 3 little goats, 4 little goats, 5 little goats, like, why 3? Why are we doing 3? I feel like, can we bump this number up some, or discuss a larger number?
You want to change the multiplier.
Change the multiplier is what I'm talking about. We threw out 3, like, is there any reason there's not 4 or 5? 3 goats, 4 goats, 5 goats, like when you picture how many goats or alpacas, like where's the issue? What number is the problem? We're saying three alpacas is the problem?
So, I'm not for any numbers, you know, as I think everyone knows. And so, for me, 4 is better than 3. But I think we didn't, the zoning commission didn't, break this down in the way that we're talking about now, because the hoofed animals seem like a convenient division from the fowl, but within the hoofed animals, and, to Nick's point about, cute little baby goats, well, these are typically smaller animals than those in alpacas. So then it's kind of arbitrary whether the number is 3 or 4, because if we were just talking about goats, a bigger number would probably be okay. But if we're talking about strictly alpacas and llamas, well, then we might, if we were wanting to have a number, then we'd be thinking about a smaller number. This is one of the reasons why numerical limits are problematic in general.
Do you agree with that? Ed, go ahead.
I don't disagree that some hoofed animals are larger than others, but I would say this is the reason why, we contemplated we did it in the past. Now, we don't want to go back to that, most people don't want to go back to that, but I think this is a good compromise, the hoofed versus non-hoofed, because it's tough to say, if you've got a little Nigerian goat versus, some gigantic thing, or a little baby doll South Down sheep versus, something that can knock you over. We gotta come up with some kind of compromise here if we're going to come up with some number. So the 3 times by 3, not 4, not 5. That's basically went back to, okay, what do we allow for horses? What size are they? And okay, well, I don't want to be unfair to them and allow way more, llamas than you would compared to horses. So that's why we came up. That's why 3 I thought was a decent number to start.
Could you live with starting off this point, 3/4 of an acre being at 4, and then the multiplier of the horse on the other REs? To give Nick a little something for the little goats. 4 for the R1, and then do the multiplier times horses on the REs, is what Nick's kind of asking for. Could that get us 4 votes for a compromise? Show of hands?
Yeah. So just to be clear, it's beginning with 4 animals, and then a multiplier of 4 on the other.
Yes.
For the
hoofed animals.
I'm just saying, from my perspective, just to get past the animal discussion, yes, I would want that.
So, and then the second half of that, no restriction on the non-hoofed. We'll just let people live with it unless there's a problem.
I would just do same as chickens, right? Same as chickens for the other thing is fowl. If you wanna have a combination of, 15 chickens and 15 turkeys, just limit it to that number we already have. I mean, this is an experiment, right? I mean, again, we're still way more than anybody around us. We're trying to make this work. So
you're saying basically, it's kind of like what I was saying, okay? So if you're really into chickens, you do all chickens. If you want to do a mix, you got a mix, but you're limited to the mix. In other words, I love that. I think it gives the freedom to people. I mean, if I'm really into turkeys, I'm going crazy with turkeys. I don't want to be telling me, you know what I mean? I think it's good to have it that way, where it's just it's a unit. It's like, okay, these things, we have so many.
Fowl has that same number, no
Yeah.
matter what.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
But are we saying they can have 25 chickens plus 25 fowl?
No.
Feathered animals,
25
and 50. Okay.
All right, good. So we need to move on.
Is there a consensus on that? It looks like there is.
Yeah, there is. Good.
Okay, we've solved that, Jim. Now we get to the real, the C and D plates. We think we captured what was agreed upon on Thursday.
Just real quick, sorry, first, voter's question.
Oh, did you do the consensus on the 4 multiplier? I think you went right into.
Yeah, no, I think everybody said yes.
You have that confirmed?
Yes. Yeah, I thought you voted yes. Now, if you look at the language that we tried to capture from last Thursday's discussion, it's right there in front of us on the Water Street, aka Deep Lake.
Let's look for Tracy to get back and step away from something.
Do we want to take a 5-minute file break? 5 minutes recess for.
We're taking a 5-minute recess.
Do you love what I do
I should just leave this. James is going to get my phone.
I had a number of those things too. I did.
Well,
I think she'll be fine, but I had to go down. No, my It's not a good show. Oh, yeah, there's several other yeah, I mean, so we'll make it an example when you positive rate. Put yourself that you were able to borrow 1 year, acreage is already 2 or 4 year. We're going to regulation it as well, yeah, you can request some people come in, you know, make a motion, you can't stamp, parcel by parcel. Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I gotta use I think that there is a question. We have done these zoning by district. There are districts that have people with greater acreage. They're listed as an R1 district, but they might have 2.5 or 3 acres. They qualify to be an RE1. I guess we've done it by district, not by acreage size. So, we need, I think that the intent and the spirit is very clear, and the minutes will reflect it for the current administrator, Brown, or his successor, because Brown's gonna write very clear notes that we've done it by district, but we have the intent on the regulations to treat people with their.
Why don't we just put in the regulation? It should be part of the text that says this will be enforced by lot size or whatever you want to say, rather than district. So if somebody has a 2.5 acre lot in a much smaller district, these regulations will, because they will be listed.
As it relates to animals.
But I don't think it can be in the notes or the minutes, or, I mean, I want future boards and future everybody to know this is how this gets enforced.
So we're gonna maintain having zoning districts in the zoning code, but as far as it's related to animal enforcement of what you can have, we'll do it based on that acreage. Is that lot size?
Makes sense.
Lot size. So we'll tell Jim, and Carmen and I will work with him on how to write that in for your approval on December 3rd. So we'll capture that.
Jen?
Without changing the whole zoning district concept of, we don't wanna do that, just for animals.
My understanding is that we are well aware that there are a number of errors in the zoning district that's being applied to various lots in the village. We've tried to correct that, as many as possible, but I think BZO Brown has been pretty clear with us that going through every lot and every subdivision right now is something he doesn't want to do and we don't want to pay him to do.
That's right.
And so he has gone through and looked at subdivisions and said, you know, this looks like it's mostly RE3 to me, I'm going to call it RE3. I can see there might be a few outliers, but I'm going to call it RE3, or it's RE2, or it's R1, or whatever. So my understanding is that in the same spirit that there may be some changes to some of this text in the future as well, we know every year we have to do a new map amendment, right? Or confirm that we haven't changed anything, and so I presume next year we're going to be trying to become more accurate with this map, and we're going to try and resolve the types of discrepancies that would lead us to into a fork between the square footage and the zoning classification. So it sounds to me like that could happen now, but it would be a goal as the map is refined next year to reduce that to not very many instances.
I think that's true, but I think the spirit of what you've discussed tonight, you want on enforcement on animals of any kind or type, you're doing it based on the acreage and the size. So we will do enforcement until we get a map revised based on acreage, not on the zoning district. But we're not throwing out zoning districts as a term in the code. Just for enforcement, so there's clear direction, we're not gonna enforce. If somebody's got a 2.5 or 3 acre and they're labeled R1, they're really an RE3, they just haven't been in the map, hasn't caught up. So we're not gonna do enforcement. You're giving direction to whoever the code enforcement officer and zoning officer, and we're gonna, as you said, get the map corrected as time goes. Is that fair to everybody? And Jim and Carmen will work on language to make that clear legally for next meeting. All right, so now we can move to
extend the meeting beyond our normal boundary. Since it's 9:30, I move to extend the meeting.
Second.
All right, so before you is what Jim and I thought there was understanding on the C and D plates.
No. All in favor? Did you make a motion, Ed?
I did.
Please accept it. All right, all in favor?
Aye. I saw everybody shake their heads, so.
Okay.
So now, Jim's got that up there. Is there a motion or is there a consensus to accept that's what we decided last Thursday? Show of hands, or do we want to discuss it?
Go ahead, Jim.
I'm just wondering whether or not in items 2 and 3, B2 and 3, whether we're saying what we mean to say, because I think we started talking about 2 deflated trucks, and then we started talking about commercial deflated trucks. So I think we maybe started with 2 non-commercial ones, and then we allowed a commercial one, and I'm not sure it was ever intended to allow 3 deflated trucks, along with the unlimited number of B and C plates. So
That's what was discussed.
That's what we captured. Is that what everybody intended?
That was the conversation, yeah.
I think Trustee Burson makes at least 8 points. She may have made a couple of points here, but the one that I think I would concur with is the maximum is 2 trucks, 2 D-plates. You've got a non-commercial and a commercial, it's still 2. That's the way I would like that to be read. It's not really how it reads. Right now, it looks like it's 3.
Okay, there is a proposal to change to no greater than 2 D plates irrespective of one and more. Jim, can you write that?
Yeah, so essentially, you just want a maximum of 2 D-plated trucks. Does it matter if they're commercial or not, or non-commercial?
Well, I think that they want to still keep one commercial, not 2 commercial on the property. Because then it just starts being a business being run out of the back.
If you were to remove from B2, just remove non-commercial. So maximum of 2 D-plated pickup trucks and or with or inclusive of a maximum of 1 commercial D-plated pickup.
Is that, have consensus, show of hands.
Could I comment real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is partly for levity. We are counting trucks. We're just saying that, we're counting trucks. I just wanna make sure everyone knows this is called counting trucks.
Yeah.
Going back to this whole counting thing, I'm so sick of it. Oh, and by the way, the newer spreaders, this is a joke, I'm sorry. We don't have the newer spreaders on there, so.
Jim Brown, will you state what we just agreed to change? So we get it right.
Right, the idea is you have a maximum of 2 trucks, so you could have 2 non-commercial plated trucks, or you could have 1 non-commercial plated truck and 1 non-commercial.
Just
But
D
you cannot have 2 commercial.
Okay.
That's
correct. Correct. That's.
And it does, it
Is there a
doesn't,
show of hands and everybody agrees with that?
well, it doesn't change B or C, right? At
No.
all? Okay. Okay, show of hands?
Yeah.
All right, consensus is. move
Wow,
forward.
that was easy.
Yeah.
That was fast.
Good.
And then number 4 is still important because I know a number of you wanted to make sure that we
Yeah,
say what we're not doing.
You know, I added this in, it's kind of funny, in my drive home from the meeting last night, I passed a C-plated box truck.
Yes.
So I put that in.
Oh, no, they are seat plates.
Right, yeah, so I put that in because we have an unlimited number of vehicles with B and C plates. So it just clarifies it. And then I threw in a bunch of other things that we have to do. That's right.
And then the one item that still remains, folks, so is that language restriction good?
Yes.
Nick has a question.
Question, what is a commercial trailer? I would strike that or be more, clear on what a commercial trailer is. I mean, is it an open equipment trailer? The language I had suggested was an open trailer that has equipment on it.
As restricted?
Yeah, an open trailer that actually has equipment on it. Because you can own an open trailer and it's not commercial. You can own an enclosed trailer and it's not commercial. So.
I think it's, this falls under the same thing as commercial versus non-commercial on a pickup truck. The plate doesn't change, but Ed's plumbing on the side of it, and my number and everything all over it, that's clearly commercial. Same thing with the trailer. If I'm storing a race car or my tools or a John Deere tractor or whatever, and that's a recreational vehicle, which we've defined, then that's non-commercial. Commercial trailer, again, it's plumbing all over it, all kinds of other stuff, well, that's a commercial trailer. So, and that's what we're looking at not having.
Mike?
That's the way it's currently written, is that have a consensus to restrict the commercial.
Mike wants to say a word.
I do actually have, this is actually poignant for me. I'm finally getting to what I care about myself. What about reproduction Civil War artillery on trailers?
It's not commercial.
We're not for profit, right? We're not for profit? Okay, just check.
That was a joke, folks.
No, I just heard you on my drop. You have to see it.
I make them get a special.
Yeah, I would say real quickly.
All of these.
Jim,
Yeah.
we're defining restricted trailers as commercial, right?
Yeah, and what Trustee Muncy said was correct, and my thought was more along landscape trailers, things like that, where you have a landscaping company and bring it in. That's what I did.
That's what would be restricted.
You just said it?
Yep, you said it.
All right, good, all right.
Is that the consensus of the group?
It is, it wasn't clear.
Yeah,
It just says commercial trailers. That is, I agree.
So Jim, you'll make those edits?
Are we officially raising?
Right, with the number of deflated trucks.
Yep. Okay, good.
Wasn't there, we
time. And then the other thing in this section 11.9 was indoor, outdoor. Right now,
Yeah,
right now,
sorry,
if you
Jim,
read,
we gotta go back. Because the lawyer brings up a good point. We're trying to restrict one commercial D plate. I think we probably should say.
So, okay, so maybe I made it into a loophole. So if you have a number of B or C plated, let's say pickup trucks or vans, and they're commercial use, under this, I think they could be allowed on the property. And you have a home-based business restriction saying you can't have additional traffic generated to the property that is outside of residential use. Maybe you expand that to traffic and parking, which would create a smaller loophole. If you had a contractor who was running a business outside of his property, he would not be able to park a number of B and C pickup trucks on his property. Now you could have unmarked pickup trucks and say they're all for residential use. But with the way it's written, it does provide a loophole. So you can tighten that loophole by what I said, and prohibit a home-based business from allowing a number of pickup trucks or any trucks with B and C plates to be parked on the property. You don't have to call them out. You can just say generates excess traffic or parking of vehicles on site, whether they're guest vehicles or vehicles for use by the business. And then the loophole's even smaller. I don't know that you're going to be able to work with it if you're allowing B and C plates.
Go ahead, Jim.
It seemed to me that this whole aspect was discussed in detail by the zoning commission, and my recollection of the part of the discussion I watched is that the B and C plate issue, they felt it was just too difficult to separate out people's work vehicles that they were bringing home, multiple family members that may potentially have these vehicles, and so I think they recognized the loophole that you're speaking of, but in the balancing of interest here, I felt that they came down on this side of it because it was, there were quite, easily conceivable legitimate uses of a significant number of B and C plate vehicles. So could we get to some other number? If people want numbers, could you make it 10? Could you make it 5? I mean, could you make it 4? I guess, but I thought that they had explicitly declined.
You could add another section to say no greater, irrespective, no greater number of commercial vehicles of 3 of any type, or 2, or whatever you want to do to close the loophole. If you want to count, as Trustee Williams has said, and keep it in the counting game.
Right. I think if you're not going to restrict B and C plates entirely, which some communities do, then you have to come up with something else. Right. And I mean, I'm just saying this from experience here. We have had some complaints, I think Jim knows, of properties where there are, let's say, pickup trucks, F-150s, parked on a driveway in a residential area, and whether or not the business is being run out of the property or not, I can't say for sure. But
So if you want to get into the counting game, can you propose a number and not to exceed them?
Well, Ed was next,
I'd like to hear after the discussion about the number, just be persons, I agree that could actually work. But also another option could work is number 1, an unlimited number of non-commercial vehicles with B and C plates, and a new number 2 would be a maximum of 2 commercial vehicles with B and C plates.
So that would end up being 3 commercial, 2 B and C, and 1 D? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what it gets to. So maybe your suggestion is better. I don't know. I'm just throwing.
No, I didn't. I don't care. I just want you guys to declare what you want.
I guess this can maybe potentially, this language with 2 commercial B-plated trucks, but I was thinking about what if you kept everything as we've discussed, except that item 3 says a maximum of 3 commercial pickup trucks.
irrespective of
Take
size.
out D-play.
But the danger with that is you could end up with 3 Ds.
Well, we already have maximum of 2 Ds.
What if you wanted just commercial too?
Right, because you got a maximum on 2 Ds anyways. So.
We want to make
So,
it,
so the total number of commercial ones, however, B, C, D, whatever, would be 3. So you couldn't have more than 2 Ds anyway. So you keep 1, you keep 2, and then on 3, you would merely take out the word D-plate.
and
And
then
change
say,
it to 3.
is everybody okay with that?
Just to be clear, that means like I can have 3, concrete forming trucks. I mean, when you start talking about commercial deep-plated trucks, these are.
You get 2 D-plated trucks.
Right.
Number 2 says you get 2.
2 non-commercial.
No, you get 2 D-plated trucks.
So we're moving
Well, you could. D-plated pickup trucks, yes. All these are pickup trucks.
Yes, it says next one 2 non-commercials. So these are horse trailer pickups, real nice F-350s, whatever, that are
Alright,
non-commercial.
so if you take out the word non-commercial from number 2, and if you change number 3 from 1 to 3, and take out the word D-plated, does this get us?
But it should get you 3 Ds though.
How can it get you 3 Ds?
No, I agree with trustee Burson, it gets you to 2. If it's a maximum of 2 deep-plated pickup trucks, and irrespective of commercial or non-commercial, then you would have a maximum of 2. But I think the intent was, and I'm not picking on asphalt,
Well, we didn't want
concrete or
commercial
whatever, but
Ds.
that would be 1 commercial D. That was the intent before, so now we would step up to 2.
Is there any way we just limit commercial pickups to, or commercial vehicles to?
That was the initial you could.
I don't know,
Keep
I
it in
don't know, you would say, well,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
you
just saying,
have a
a
petrol
max is
station
2.
at the end.
Is that crazy, or
Of
you think 2's too much?
X amount of commercial vehicles with the restrictions that you don't already allow, so.
So you keep everything as is.
So
but
B, C,
add a-
D, 2. Is too many? 1?
Oh, no, I'm the 3 for commercial. 3?
Because they don't want 3 Ds.
No, I don't want more than 2 Ds of any kind. And I understand that people who don't want more than 1 commercial D. So I was just trying to keep the language simple, but if it takes 4 statements to get there, it's okay.
But you're,
Or should you-
for commercial, you're saying 3, I'm saying 2.
I'm saying 2, you saying 3.
I'm saying 3.
3
Oh, including B and C plated vehicles.
So you don't.
Because it's real easy to get there.
I think what worries me, I mean, my pickup trucks, we always use pickup trucks because you can totally deduct them, or you can't do that with a car. So they were always Bs, and they were pulled anything, but I had a B with a name on it, I mean, so, I think Bs and Cs, I mean, I never thought of it until you mentioned it, actually. That is a concern, I mean, usually the foreman is a B truck, it's just common. So you could end up with 3 commercial vehicles on a property, where I think that might be a bridge too far, I think most people want to put 2, right? We always say show of hands on how many commercial, I'm just saying, yeah, what I'm saying is, like, how many commercial would you be comfortable with? I'm talking commercial, I'm not talking about people's passenger vehicles, whatever they wanna do.
Tom is proposing 2 commercial of any type. Is there a show of hands that want to restrict it to 2?
I'm fine with that.
And then,
And that's with the D plate, right?
well,
Commercial anytime.
any
Any
type
type.
is 2. Is there, what's the hands for 2? Commercial.
2 commercial of any type.
2, 3, and trustee Parker.
And then we're gonna go to D plate?
No,
Are
no,
we
no,
eliminating?
no.
So what it's saying is basically regardless of B, C, D, or
Yeah.
any of those specifications, the max commercial
Okay.
pickup trucks you can have, or trucks, is 2.
Okay.
And Janet's proposing 3.
And I, you know,
Can we have
Mike?
consensus on that?
give me, talk me into why I'm wrong. I mean, you're not agreeing, so I'm just trying to get a feel.
So,
What do you think about 3 too?
basically, you got 3 people want 2, and 3 people want 3, so you, President,
I say
you
3.
got it, you got it call.
I say 3.
So it goes to 3.
I was just say, I Just say the mixed part, so keep it at 1D commercial,
Okay.
right, so that could be 1D, 2 DC commercial, max.
Yep.
Okay.
Max.
All right.
Move on. Can we get past trucks? Are we done with trucks?
Yes.
Just on, can I bring up one point?
Sure, go
Um,
ahead.
Can I just go on something that's really easy to vote on?
Yeah.
Just so we got something, we can feel good about, we did trucks pretty well. The next one I just wanna vote on, I think we skipped it last time, is these, okay. I don't really want Jim. I don't want you putting up signs.
No.
I think that should be, I think the sign thing, you know, I remember the whole thing with the, what was it for
Oh, the zoning?
zoning?
For
variances and stuff.
I just don't wanna pay him to go put up signs, I think that's kinda ridiculous, I was hoping that we could keep that.
As the applicant's responsibility.
I had provided a picture from Boulder, Colorado, when I was out there, they have a write in yourself sign. It's, you know, it's got all the blanks in it, and they write in all the specifics. You don't have to have it pre-printed, it's not expensive. You just keep a stack of them, and then the zoning official or somebody pre-prints that, and then the residents post it.
Yeah, I agree, the applicant should post a sign,
Yeah.
and then you verify.
Yeah, what trustee Mullen just said, as long as there's language that says that the village verifies that it meets the requirements.
Yeah, 'cause the clock's gotta start.
State statute requires certain letter height, color, and all that, so, yeah.
So we have consensus to, the applicant has to post the sign.
Sure.
As approved by the zoning
Oh,
official.
boy, unanimous.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right, now we
Moving
have
on from
under
commercial.
other.
Under commercial vehicles.
Anything else?
We had discussed
Oh, you're right.
agricultural or farm properties, and we had discussed inside and outside, and I don't see why. So the agricultural district is there, is where you, the legal principal use of the lot, that's what you added, it's not red, but that's what you added, correct? D?
That was on the language that had been forwarded to the other meeting, so that's why the starting point here.
Okay.
Okay, so if you know, and there was only, I think, one trustee, it was trustee Faulkner, who pretty much liked everything, and then the discussion went in different directions, including indoor and outdoor, so. You know, now we're getting into, is there anything else here you wanna change, indoor, outdoor, the other paragraphs, C, D, E, whatever. I think we're done with the top two. Well, so here's, going back to B, you see residential districts, the following provisions apply to the overnight outdoor park. That would be,
That's what
Maybe
the
the
24 folks put in there.
Yeah.
B is outdoor, C is outdoor. And I had mentioned King County previously, and currently says indoor and outdoor. Our previous said indoor and outdoor, and my preference was indoor and outdoor. And I think trustee Voter had his a lot of thoughts in opposition to that as well.
Okay, the consensus is it only says outdoor. Is there a desire, raise of hands, to change it to indoor and outdoor?
Or why don't you take consensus,
Oh.
you agree with that?
Do you agree with, well, yeah, you could.
It's easier. It's easier that way. Do you agree with the way it's written, just outdoor parking is counted, not indoor? You got it.
They got it.
Okay,
Okay.
That's easier.
all right.
thank you.
All right.
You wanna?
And now we have other items that haven't actually been addressed or discussed. I think there was a question from one of the trustees, Jim, about the dark sky ordinance and why it wasn't included in 2024, and I think you've got a good answer what the commission did.
Yeah, the commission, we went back and forth on this, and their final recommendation, determination was that we have a dark skies ordinance, and they felt it would be sufficient to have the provisions in one place and not have two parallel or similar or even exact provisions in two different instances, that it was sufficient to have it in one.
Rather than
Yeah.
my preference in this one would be due to the fact that finding the zoning ordinance is gonna be hard enough for our residents, and finding this section and exterior lighting and getting, if they're trying to be responsible, saying, what can I do, what kind of lighting can I have, that's one. But then going into the code and trying to find a dark sky ordinance, and I mean, why can't we just reference it? Just reference, we have a dark sky ordinance, this is the ordinance number, I mean, it should just be referenced in here so I know, if I wanna put up lighting all over the place and, you know, whatever, at least there's somewhere I can go for that, I can find it. That's why I would suggest.
What section was that going to, Jim?
It's in, I think it's Article 8.
Lights.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I can find an appropriate place. I believe it's in Article 8.
Mike, go ahead.
I think that was one of the sidebar, the COPIC or somebody kind of suggested that as the exact same thing, it's just incorporated by reference and then have a hot link.
Yeah.
In this one, it's published.
All right, we'll put it in either section 8 or section 9, depending on where the lights are.
Yeah.
Okay? The consensus? Does anybody object to that? I see no objections. Jim, you got your direction.
Yeah.
And I know I'm forgetting.
Well, we have accessory structures, we talked last time to raise the percentages or go with just a solid number. So we have that still, self-storage, facilities, gravel driveways.
That's it. Yeah, so if we could, under self-storage, it's not allowed. And most cities don't, and towns don't allow it because they don't get any sales tax out of it, and they don't want it in their commercial area that doesn't produce sales tax. That's not a factor for us since we don't have a sales tax. But do you want to permit?
That was the item I brought up.
Do you want to permit self-storage?
Well, I'd like to speak to it so we can consider it. So we had an application for a self-storage facility that would take over what is now a gravel truck yard. It also doesn't, actually the owners kind of wanted to, but anyway. It looked like it was going to be, well landscaped, well fenced, whatever, and those could all be part of the site requirements. Wouldn't be a lot of traffic to self-storage facility. And then we have the option, such as the Village of Woodridge, to impose a tax on the rent. They charge 5% of self-storage rents, and that's a revenue source for them for any self-storage facility. It has not been included, it wasn't included in 2023, it was not included in 2024. I just think it's a use that might be even, a better use than some in commercial districts, so it could be a special use that has to be approved in a commercial district to have a self-storage facility. I don't see the problem with it. They don't use our water, they don't use our sewer, we can tax them.
As part of a condition for approval.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So do we want to create it in all the commercial districts as a special use?
Can I ask a question first? Officially?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the 5% tax that Trustee Muncy referred to in another community, as a non-home rule community, is our attorney agreed that we would be able to assess a 5% tax if we wanted?
I'd have to review it, but I know Woodbridge is not home rule.
Okay, thank you.
Or, I'm sorry, Woodbridge is home rule, excuse me. But I'd have to review under what structure they brought it. I'm not immediately, no.
But when you negotiate a condition, you got latitude.
Yeah.
So, in all commercial districts or just C1?
I'm suggesting C1, C2.
C1, C2.
RD?
Not RD.
You guys have C1?
Yeah, I guess yes. I guess that's a commercial district as well.
So all commercial districts.
Unless somebody has a specific thought or objection.
Consensus? All right.
Okay. So we'll change the table, and then we'll go S's, they're right under the 3 Ps for industrial design, okay.
Good. And now gravel driveways, I think you need to show that section, it's not allowed in the smaller R1s.
You have to have an estate to have gravel driveway.
REs, you have to have a state, and that's how it was, I think, in 23's ordinance.
It was, what I'm suggesting, I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn, I brought this one up. I don't know, it just sounds a little elitist to say you have to have a state to have a gravel driveway. I mean, gravel driveways are pervious pavement, so they don't add to water issues, they don't add to heat issues. I mean, yeah, some people think they're ugly, I get it, but I just wanted to ask the board if we would consider gravel driveways either in all districts or to some certain, but right now it's just the estate districts.
I have no objection.
I say all districts.
Question is, I mean, just for kicks and giggles, if a developer did come in, would he be exempt?
Oh, that's a good question.
That would be my only issue. I don't really care what people do, like, outside of, it's just, if a developer came in, would he be like, oh, wow, I don't put in driveways? That would kind of look a little bad.
Yeah, I would say if any large development came in, it would probably be under a PUD or annexation agreement, and you could specify design standards within there, including driveways.
And it's probably also covered under a subdivision ordinance, correct?
Not really, I don't think so.
I think that should be
Easily could be.
stated though. I think that should be stated in our zoning ordinance about developers coming in.
Well, you can just state under your PUD, you put restrictions on a PUD every time, and everything's negotiable.
Yeah.
So you could just say you're allowing gravel in all districts is the proposal, is that acceptable?
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying yes, I'm saying
Everybody's saying yes. So make that change, Jim?
Yeah.
And then what was the last one I didn't come to?
Accessory structures.
Yes, the 2% is in the code. There was a discussion of possibly getting to consensus of 3, but we wanted to wait till Mike was here to just give his point of view on that, because the zoning commission fought back and forth on sticking with 2. And the math, if you did 2.5, everybody would benefit. 3, some of the larger lots would benefit a lot. And Jim and I are very much, 3 should be your max. Don't go higher than 3 because you're gonna create issues. So.
Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
Another thing I wrote down, okay. 4 acres and above, 2%, 2.5%, 2 acres to 4 acres, and then under 2 acres, 3%. That's my suggestion.
So the max is 3%, is what you're saying.
On the
On
smaller lot.
everything, on a smaller one. Okay. Go ahead.
For trustee Millette, do you have any numbers, just so we get a perspective, and is that double the size of the accessory structures for the smaller lots, or 1.5, or
50% more.
50% more? Okay, and then the other ranges, is it about the same?
Well, we wouldn't be changing the bigger lots, it'd be 4 acres and larger, would be the same. And so then.
Well, no, I'm comparing it to what's been historically, up until today,
Yeah.
900, 1,800.
The hard numbers.
Yeah.
No, I didn't do the hard numbers, I apologize.
Well, when we did the discussion at the zoning commission, they picked 2 because other than the smallest lot, everybody benefited and got more coverage. They could do more on their lot. That's why they picked 2. And, right, Jim?
Yeah, they didn't want to increase it too much, they wanted to increase it, and they went to, 2 across the board. About the same time that we were discussing this, there was a case that was brewing that went to the ZBA on a fellow who had another accessory structure, and if he had had 1 more square foot of lot size, he would have had 300 more.
We were
square feet. Yeah,
We discussed that.
So, yeah, they came in, you probably remember this. So that was, I think, on their mind, and they just wanted like 1 instead of a sliding. That's how they came up.
Yeah, they just didn't want to do the sliding. They just
Yeah,
picked
I know.
2, thinking that everybody would benefit and that it would be easy to enforce. But Mike, could you say again what you were proposing?
I'll say again, and I just did the math. Greater than 4 acres, 2%. Between 2 acres, so to make it legal, it would be less than 4 acres, more than 2 acres. So, greater than 2, less than 4, 2.5%. And then 2 acres or less, 3%. And to your question, Trustee Muncy, currently on the small lot, you're at 500, so that would bump you up to 870. so that's not quite double. And
But
then,
that would get you close to what you have now, 900. Yeah.
oh, yeah, correct, I'm sorry, wrong table. So that would be essentially the same. And then on the in-between lots, it's variable because you're at, right now it says 2 to 5 is set at 18. So you would be on both, because then that would drop you up to 1305. So on the higher end, you'd be hurt, but on the lower end you'd be hurt, the higher end you'd be benefited. And then the split on the one right now is 5 acres. So I'm proposing 4 though, so it's hard to compare those, but the 5 acres and over still be 2880.
Go ahead, Janet.
I like the proposal because it works around a small arithmetic error that came out of the zoning commission. Again, in a continued well-intentioned attempt to give everybody a little bit more, most people got a little bit more, but if you were an an RE2, you didn't get more. So by adding that extra 0.5% for the RE2s, it fulfills the function of giving them also a little bit more, and by keeping the RE1s at 2%, I think we don't have a runaway train.
Does everybody agree? Consensus? Yes? Oh, unanimous.
We're going crazy.
How about that? All right.
Now we're at the point, did we miss anything that hasn't been brought up by any member of the board?
Was there some stuff, oh, sorry. You're gonna do it the right way. You do it.
Okay.
It was brought up by at least one of the commenters tonight. Other people have talked to me about it, and I told them, there's so many things that we're talking about. This is a small thing, and we'll get to it later. But we managed to get consensus on some other small things. We don't allow electric fences, and there was discussion about the setback of livestock fences and so forth. We've a number of responsible property owners in the village today that are using electric fences. And to the point that was made by one of the commenters, these are not high voltage devices. You're not going to get electrocuted. You're going to know you touched it, and they should be marked, clearly. But otherwise, I think an electric fence solves no problems.
Go ahead, Tom.
But what was the point of the electric fence thing? I mean, is it literally like they're worried that someone's gonna put a fence that shocks people? I mean, there is.
Well, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
In my property, I don't fight with a neighbor over it or anything, but we have spruces, pines, and so forth adjoining a horse farm, and the horses eat the branches. So I could say, I really think you should have a separate fence, that 5-foot fence that you love so much, right? To keep the horses from doing that, the owner could also put a hot wire on the top of that fence, and the horses are not going to do it.
It doesn't pose a health risk to, the child that grabs it. Because I grew up in farm areas. We used to have contests who could hold on to it.
Well, that explains it.
I know this might be a stupid question though too. So someone, let's say someone out there in the rural areas decided, hey, I want to put up a hot fence to keep people out just for this sole purpose of zapping people because it's a burglar thing. I'm just asking, is there any way to differentiate from that?
Okay. No, you could leak that thing fast. Mark's right.
No. What I'm
So
saying
you
is,
can go over.
what if somebody out there decided to say, hey, I want to create a little thing where I
Microphone.
What if somebody, I'm just throwing it out there, I get the whole, the animal thing, but let's say somebody just was nuts and they're like, hey, I want to create a little bunker here and I want to put an electric fence that actually shocks people. Is that something that's possible? Are we opening the door? Yes, it is, but I'm just asking, that's all.
If they come in and get the right permit, we'll have to stop it.
No, I'm just asking, that's all. I'm just asking. I don't want to door open.
President Menke.
Yes.
So just to comment on that, obviously, yes, it is. You could just wire it to your 240 or your 110 and have at it. Physically, technically, it's possible. It is illegal to do that sort of thing. I think the village attorney would concur that actually could get you in a lot of hot water, especially if somebody gets injured or killed. But if there needed to be, I like the first language that was mentioned about signage or warnings or something to say this is an electric fence, and that's pretty kind of, you almost get those in the package when you buy it.
And to Trustee Williams' concern, you could say the electric fence is allowed for animal husbandry.
Thank you, yeah, some term for it,
And that
commonly used animal.
Animal husbandry, because they only sell the safe.
Okay.
Yes. So we could do, Jim Brown, add electric fences are allowed for animal husbandry.
Yeah, so I'll just change E up there right now. Yeah. Good.
Good, thank you. All right,
Do we have any other issues, or can we bring this forth for passage December 3rd?
Was there any more on fencing you wanted? I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm just asking.
I
Is there
have
fencing?
a question previously on fencing, but Jim Brown answered it. I have no further questions.
Yes, and I think cannabis was discussed without Mike being here, but we did state post-meeting that professionally, we do not recommend you add cannabis use in any of your zoning, commercial districts, because that is the topic that's usually done as a special one-off kind of amendment. So that's why we didn't include medical or recreational cannabis to be allowed in the use table, because you did a public hearing where we didn't discuss it at all. So that's why we didn't add that in to the use table.
I have a question. I think Trustee Montgomery.
Jim is first.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned at the last meeting, and my recollection was that there was a referendum on that, and Michael, or Trustee Millett, concurred that there was indeed a referendum, and it was not, it was shot down.
Yeah, so right now, that's why we didn't add it in the use table, folks. Is there a concurrence to not add it?
To not add.
Concurrence to not add
At this time.
cannabis to a.
I thought we had a consensus last week though for special use.
We did, but upon further review, it's tricky, because we never discussed cannabis one time, and we certainly didn't do it at the public hearing. So if we added it, you'd be accused of not being transparent.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think I already asked a question.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to. This question for probably the village attorney. If we did want to put a referendum on again in the next, April, whatever it is, 2025, is there still time to do that? If some trustees were interested in pulling the.
I think you're getting really close to February. It's like 3 or 4 days left. You're 92 days prior.
Okay.
February 25th. Yeah, which is about 4 or 5 days from now.
Does the question have to be, just like our elections, does it have to be posted for the primary to get on the consolidated election for April, or?
That's a good question. I can find out.
Yeah, I think we can.
Either way, you would have to, you don't have a board, you have to have an ordinance.
An action item to
An action
approve.
item to approve the question to go on the ballot. So if we only have a few days left, and it has to be on February, you're not gonna have it next meeting. If it doesn't have to be on February, it can be in April, then you know.
But irrespective, you could do a text amendment in 6 months or 3 months from now, and just do cannabis
That
as
was
a
where my
discussion.
question.
You don't have to do it by referendum, that's not a requirement, it's just a practice
And if
you've
you
done.
did do a text amendment, you'd have a hearing before the ZBA and
Would you, so this is the heart of my question.
Okay.
So, if, to do a text amendment for, let's say the only thing that we wanted to do a text amendment for next year was cannabis, then that would require that it go before the ZBA?
Any changes to the zoning ordinance?
And so any text amendment would go before the ZBA?
And the village would be the petitioner. Any text amendment that the village is the petitioner. Text amendment.
All right, I'd say.
So-
Mike, go ahead.
So just,
Yeah. Sorry.
I want to make sure
Mhm.
I'm taking that entire statement. So, so it's, so So for people who say, well, if you didn't get something right this time, you just fix it, 6 months from now, not quite so easy, because there's multiple steps to that. It's not just a matter of 4 votes on it.
Sure, no, I mean, it would be a public hearing before the ZBA, and then it would come back for your final approval based on their recommendation.
With a recommendation which we can accept or reject.
Right, the only way to do a full change to the code or an adoption of a new version without the ZBA would be through zoning commission, like you just said now. But yes, it is. I mean, if you're just changing a few words, everybody has to go to the
Michael.
So, if,
unless it's a script or
okay. If we have time to get it as a advisory, I'm okay with that. If you wanna have some.
But it clearly would go.
No, if it doesn't challenge the.
April election.
To the April. It
Right,
doesn't
so
have to be
the
on.
issue is that if there
the
is
final
no-
filing date is for it.
Yeah, the issue is that if there is no primary, because the village doesn't need one, then everyone who files or who has filed, right, for February automatically primary vote, which leads me to believe that it would be for the February. Yeah, but I will check.
Go ahead.
Madam President, sorry. Yeah, just one, I would support that. I think the fact that we did it once before, right? Mike?
Now I'm
But you didn't.
fuzzy.
Yes, you didn't, I'm sure you didn't.
Okay, but the point is, we had a lot of.
You're an advisory, not a binding.
Oh, no, it was not binding. Oh, no, it was not binding. It was not binding. It was not
The
binding.
referendum on gaming, I can't.
But even if we,
Yeah.
okay, I thought trustee Malek, endorsed, that's what I said, maybe I was wrong, I admitted that, but to that point though, it was clearly pitchforks and knives were drawn upon, I'm exaggerating of course, but there was a lot of opposition, regardless, and it was a unanimous vote not to support it.
Yeah.
The board was a unanimous vote. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
And to the point, I don't think it's unlike video gaming. At that point, when we weren't entirely sure what it was about, it's always easier to say no. And then we had different feedback. I mean, dispensary, every town, lots of towns around, mine's got one coming in. I mean, it may not be the scary thing we're thinking of. We talked about having it only in a commercial use, potentially something like that. So I think it's okay if we have the time to test the waters again and see what the public opinion is now.
I agree.
I think we're done. And, let's see, we have number 8 was the KDOT update. We can do that December 3rd, because the hour is getting late now. And the closed session too, we'll do that December 3rd in the next meeting. Okay, so motion to.
Well, I think we didn't do an official motion to move the zoning 2024 ordinance as amended to action.
To our next meeting, okay.
Second.
Second, okay, roll call.
Who made the motion?
Trustee Burson.
Janet, and then, Ed.
Trustee Burson? Aye. Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Bogner?
Aye.
Trustee McElveen?
Aye.
Trustee Malek?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay, Jim, second by Janet, all in favor say aye.
Aye.